Good
Hello.
morning. It
It is
is
still morning.
it is still morning.
It is.
Yes. We can see lots of you have tuned in. We hope that you are as excited as we are.
We've got so much to share. We've
Yes.
got
We have
piles of
piles.
goodies
You
around
can
us.
see the piles
There's piles everywhere.
everywhere. Yes,
I'm
yes,
afraid
yes,
I'm going to
yes.
knock one over. So, yeah, there's so many things that we're going to talk about.
Yes, absolutely. The chat is open. We can see it. You should be able to chat with us both on Facebook and YouTube.
Yep. Got
We
3 check marks up here, so everything looks good.
Yep. Please feel free to answer.
Yeah,
Answer.
you can answer them too.
Yeah,
absolutely.
ask questions, and we will do our best to answer those. If we don't answer you right away, it's probably because that's coming up, but we
Yep.
will make sure that we go through and try to get everybody's questions answered. We have a list of some stuff that people emailed us
Yep.
to answer, and we're excited about sharing a lot of good information.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
as we said, we're not going to be a brand specific today. We're going to be rolling through lots of different
Mhm.
types. So you'll see the different names of different brands of stabilizers. When we talk
Scrolling
about
through.
a type, you'll see everybody's name.
Version of it,
So
yes.
we are not going to say, only this one. If we say only this one,
It's probably
it's
because that's our
probably
preferred
because
version.
that's the preferred version. So, nope,
Spam.
bam,
Perfect timing.
perfect. I knew it was
Yeah.
going to happen.
So, I know we have some people and you guys are saying good morning. Like, tell us where you're from. This is Kentwood. It's a brisk morning here.
It is.
We're in case you don't know, we're in Ann Arbor, so we're
Yes.
kind of in a fun little town.
There's always something happening here.
Yes.
Always something. So if you are new to Laboo, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lisa.
Hi, Sarah.
So our names are
Right below us.
right there.
Yep.
So you can, not that it really matters because we both answer
Answered.
to either
Whatever.
one because it happens a lot.
Mhm.
So, but thank you for joining us today and welcome to Laboo. We've
This is our fourth sort of generic stabilizer event or Laboo branded stabilizer event.
So we kind of attack this as a recipe for success. So rather than this brand and this is what you have to do, we do, yes, this is what you should be doing, but we pull from
A variety.
a variety of types so that you get the best results versus sticking with only a singular brand to hopefully get the best results versus only staying in one brand style. So,
Oh, we've got Oklahoma, Oregon, Novi. Yes, we won't tell anybody. We'll try to keep this PG.
Sometimes
when you say things about sewing,
it doesn't
if
come
it's
out
out
quite
of
right.
context, it does not sound
PG.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we have a ton of people visiting, and lots of people. We can see that you're watching. So we're gonna go ahead and just get started, right?
Yeah, I think we should jump right in because we have a ton of information. So, feel free to munch and whatnot throughout. We'll try to keep our hunger pains from coming up through the microphone later on. So we got some Mountain Dew and coffee going here, so we'll be
staying
wide awake hopefully
all right
throughout the afternoon here. So here we go.
Yes.
Stabilizer boot camp.
Yep. We kind of introduced ourselves already.
Yep.
This will remain up. So it won't go. A lot of times we watch something with our favorite people, Dime or OESD or something like that.
And you have 24 or 48 hours to win it. This will stay there unlimited. So once it's posted, you'll be able to find it. YouTube, Facebook, it will be there. It's usually a little bit easier to find on YouTube because they let us actually organize the files that are there. Facebook is kind of a crapshoot of where you're gonna
sometimes it's harder
to find it, but they will be in both places. So once we are finished and it posts, it will be there forever. So are our past years. So you can find previous things. There's a couple versions of this that will be out there as well.
Yes. So this is also the one time of year where we have a bag club. The bag club is basically designed for our stabilizer customers. We're a huge embroidery store here, so we sell a ton. We have way more embroidery people than we do pretty much any other genre of
Yep.
people doing here.
A lot of
So,
quilters, but even that, the quilters are a lot of it is ordering, quilting in the hoop,
yes,
and then putting those things together. So
let's hope that's just for you. Marilyn is having some issues with audio.
I hope so.
Yes.
Let us know if there's anybody else. We're getting, like we said, green check marks, and we've got, according to our mic bars, everything looks good. So I'm hoping.
It is on your
I mean,
end.
we're not hoping that you
Sometimes
have problems, but
switching over to YouTube will give you a better
sometimes Facebook
video
isn't as friendly.
experience. Yes.
So if you have the ability, you could give YouTube a try.
Okay. Oh, Lynn is saying some crackling. Okay, well, we're gonna hope that everything stays solid here. Maybe we should make sure they're all not
Yep.
on. Hey guys. I know I took my phone and moved it to off of our Wi-Fi. Are you guys on, like, I know the iPads have to be on, but can you make sure that
phone is not.
and can you
Can you
make
make sure
sure
Tony and everybody else is off?
Yep. All right.
All right. So
Let's try. You're having trouble hearing the audio as well. Okay, so let's see if we can
make some adjustments.
make some adjustments. All right. Is that any better? Good morning. Good morning. Are you able to hear us any better? Oh, okay. Trouble hearing. All right. So let's take a couple minutes and before we actually get started and see if we can get this any better. No change really. Okay. So,
Now it's echoing.
now
That's a new
we
one.
are echoing. Okay. Same.
Well, that's not good. It's going to be a long couple hours.
It is. So let's go back here. And all right, so Jan says that she can hear fine on Facebook. You're hearing an echo. Do you still hear an echo? Hopefully this is getting better and not worse. There are only a couple of more tricks I have up my sleeve.
There's only a few buttons we can push.
All right. That's better. Okay.
All right. We are.
You sound better to me. Okay.
Okay. Well, hopefully that is, we've got everybody in the store off of the link. So hopefully there's no interference coming from our side.
Okay.
So hopefully
Good.
we're as good as we can get.
Yes. All right. That's fantastic. Okay. So someone switched to Facebook and it was better there. So
all right.
All right.
Here we go.
We do appear, I'm just double checking to make sure that even though I've got green checks, everything seems to be live. Okay. Better now. Great. Okay. All right. So now we're going to start.
Okay. So hi again.
Hi again. Yeah. All right. All right.
So sorry. Good morning. Good morning. We are going to send a whole lot of information your way. So I'm glad that the sound seems to be better. Apologies that we had a few glitches there. We're going to go ahead and get jump right in because again, we're going to have a ton of stuff that we are going to go through. So
yes,
feel free to toss up some questions in that chat bar over there. And again, if we don't answer it right away, it's probably because it's going to come maybe be answered in a upcoming slide, so we aren't ignoring you. All right, and we did get a few questions that were sent in. We will answer those as they become relevant into the slideshow or whatever you into today's
absolutely.
show as we go. So,
all right, so we're glad we were able to get that squared away, and let's get started. Okay, so here we are, stitching with SNL. I'm Sarah.
I'm
This is
Lisa.
Lisa, and we are here at Laboo. So we're gonna go to our first page here, and talk a little bit about it. We started this already, where we're kind of not really brand exclusive when it comes to our stabilizers. We have lots of choices these days.
We really do. But the fact of the matter is there's not a lot of factories out there that are actually producing the stabilizers. So there's lots of different labels on the rolls, but there's not actually a whole lot of difference in what is inside of the rolls. So what the label isn't necessarily super indicative of what's going on.
Correct.
So what you choose to put in your products into those projects that you're doing is really going to really make a difference in how that comes out. So a lot of people think, you know, every no-show is the same and every tearaway is the same, and it's not. So there's not a lot of factories, but all things are not created equal. So it really does matter what you are choosing. And it's as easy as it is to buy things on the internet and buy off of Amazon and random places. It's not necessarily the best selection based on the quality of that product. So we're hoping to help you learn how to select the correct materials to ensure that you get the results that you want every time.
Yes, and that is super duper important. If you put good quality in, you will likely to get a better product on the finish side.
Absolutely. And who wants to put all that time and energy and money, because you know it's not just the stabilizer that's costing us money. It's the thread and you know the hoop, the machine, the material,
product,
everything. You know, it all adds up. So it's very frustrating when you put all of that time and effort and money into something and then it doesn't turn out the way you expected. So let's get started and learn what stuff does and what stuff doesn't.
Yes. So for us, we think that the most important way to be successful is to start by preparing your fabric, marking your centers, starching your fabrics, making sure that you know the material that you're going to be using. Because if your fabric can't handle water, then you need to make sure that you don't have a water-based or a water wash-away based product. If your product can't be isn't heat tolerant, then you want to make sure you're not using things like that. So you have to start by knowing the fabric, and then we need to start by preparing the fabric so that we can then start adding our stabilizers.
Yep. And you know, even as simple of that marking, choosing the right marking pen for the rest of your project, because if you are going to have to iron something in and you use a heat sensitive marking pen, all of your markings are going to disappear before you get a chance to use them. That's a little frustrating.
Yes.
So
I have done that more than one time. Like I
we've
have
all
pre-marked my fabric and then I'm like, oh, there's a wrinkle, and then I'm like, shoot.
You know, we've all done that, unfortunately, where, you know, okay, I need to press this whatever in, and then my center point went, and you're like, nuts. You know, now I got to go do that all over again. So, you know, there are different type of marking pens for a reason. So we're going to talk about those types of things as well, because the prep for your fabric and your project is also just as important to making sure that it comes out as best as possible.
Yes.
As the stabilizer that you're attaching.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk about that first. So, best press. This is kind of our go-to here. We carry it by the gallon as well as in the spray bottles. So once you get your spray bottle, you can then buy a gallon refill to just refill that. You don't have to keep buying spray bottles. You can buy a gallon and then just refill that original one. If you are going to buy a kit, a bundle of some sort today, there is a little travel size in there. It's not a huge bottle. We decided to go with the smaller bottle because of a couple reasons. I actually think it's kind of great because if you're traveling, it's a great size to go to an event with if you are needing that, and it's got a cap on the bottle so it doesn't blow up all over the place. And if we have to ship it to you, it's actually shippable.
Yes, and it doesn't weigh a ton.
And it doesn't weigh a ton. So there was multiple reasons that we chose the size bottle that we put in the kit. not to mention that if you've never used it before, it's a great trial size that you can feel like you're, not getting a gallon of something and just give it a shot.
Right.
So this is in the bundles, and you can give that a try. So.
And we're going to show a little bit about what we mean by using something to prepare your fabric. We had this, it's funny because Best Press became a large conversation in the shop yesterday. So Lisa wasn't here.
I wasn't here.
But Tucker,
I was working at home.
Yeah, so Tucker is our newest employee here. So she was asking me, about different types of starches and things like that. So, she worked in a costume thing, and they would dip their fabrics in starch to make the background stiff and things like that. And we were talking a little bit about why we choose Best Press over always using like traditional starch. And one of the nice things about Best Press is I wouldn't say that it never leaves a residue on my iron, because anytime you have something wet and you're putting a hot iron on it,
you can get a film.
Get a little bit of a film.
But it doesn't leave it on the fabric.
It doesn't leave it on the fabric, and it doesn't make the fabric flaky.
Right.
We're kind of flaky.
Sometimes. I mean,
Some days.
You're kind of blonde.
I'm kind of blonde.
I'm not, but then again, this is a dye, so, but I'm not actually a blonde either.
But it doesn't make our fabrics flake, which
No.
is really nice.
Absolutely.
And that's very important. There are also things that, like, I've never personally had like a moth eat something that had like regular starch on it.
I've not either.
But I have
it's
seen
a thing.
people.
It's a thing.
Yeah, I have seen people like show me pictures of, this was hanging in my closet. I prepped my fabric. I left it there. It's been a year since I got to it, and
now
somebody,
there's holes in it.
Some little animal or a moth or something got a hold of it. So I don't believe that you will have those types of issues with Mary Ellen's Best Press, because it isn't actually made from potatoes. It's no starch.
It's no starch. It's just starch.
Yes.
It's pretend starch.
It's pretend starch, but it does give us the opportunity to stiffen up our fabrics in a light manner or super stiff.
Depending on how much you put into the product.
Right.
So not only as a starch, but also as a pre-shrinking technique, which is the big key when it comes to an embroidery standpoint.
Yes.
If you are putting fabric into a project and you don't pre-shrink your fabrics, and then you put it in the wash,
they're going to shrink.
It's going to shrink. And if you take it out of the wash and you go, why does it look like that? And you didn't pre-shrink any of your fabrics, there's like a light bulb should probably be going off in your head right now, because that's like, oh, that's what's happening. So if we don't have all of that pre-work happening, when you go and wash those things and get them wet later on, that shrinkage is going to happen. And then inside of your satin stitches and inside of your appliques isn't going to look as pretty as it did in the hoop originally.
It is not.
So
we're going to show
would you
this
like
live.
to have some fun?
Yes.
So this is just unprepped. So this is literally just cut off the bolt. It's got a little bit of wrinkle in there, so you can see there is a ruler.
Yep, and it's just shy of 10 inches.
I'm wondering if we should
put something white underneath
white
that.
underneath to make it visible. That's a little better, I
Yeah.
think. All right. So you can see the measurement there. It is.
So actually, grab a little piece of tape. Let's put a little piece of tape on the ruler so that everybody can see where it started. So we're actually at like 9 3/4.
That doesn't want to tear. Let's try the tape dispenser.
All right. So here is where we started. All right. So we have from here to here. That is how.
That's the length of that fabric before anything happens.
Before anything happens.
All right. So there we go.
And
I'm
now
we're going to slide that out of the way so we don't douse the ruler as well.
Take our best
There's
press.
our best press.
And we're going to get this
wet. We're going to get it wet. And we're getting it wet.
And
I mean,
you can see it's shrinking. So, and because keep in mind, if you were to wash this, it's going to get wet.
It's going to get completely wet.
It's absolutely going to get wet. So here we have where we started.
Here's the edge.
And here is where we finished. So I'm just going to plop it right on top of this ruler here.
There's
a big white spot there. So you can see,
dear Liza, how much
that shrank.
imagine that happening in your hoop after you've
done your
finished
embroidery.
your project. So you are now going to have puckers inside of your appliques and miscellaneous things because that fabric is going to shrink if you don't prepare it before you use it. So when you are cutting your pieces, you get a kit of fabric that you get it from us or from somewhere else. And we've pre-cut all of that stuff down to the sizes that you need. And you think, hey, it's already been all set up for us. You know, I can just go cut this. You need to starch it first. One, it's going to pre-shrink it. Two, it's going to make it so much easier to cut because it's not going to be wishy-washy underneath your ruler. It's going to stay where you put it.
Yes. Yes. So it's definitely, so we're showing you this on a piece of fabric, but we a lot of times don't talk about the importance of pre-washing things. Sometimes we don't have an opportunity to pre-wash things. It goes back to knowing your product. What it is that you're going to be putting your embroidery on. If you have something that is going to shrink, a t-shirt, a jacket, a shirt, anything that you have, if it is going to be washed or it's going to get water or you're going to apply steam to it, if it can shrink, it will. So you need to figure out a way to make sure that you have pre-shrunk it. I don't like to take the time to pre-wash my fabrics. It's just one of those things
it's a lot. And if you're not, you know, serging the edges, then you end up with, you know, frayed edges and yuck that you have to deal with and trying to then iron it all before that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. I don't like to do that.
I don't either.
So I like this.
So this
really works for me.
Right. It's a way of making sure that when I introduce water to my quilt or my tote bag or whatever project it is that I'm using, it's not going to have this shrinkage effect. It's important for you to also pay attention to how your stabilizers react to water. If it is something that is going to be staying with it. That's right.
Absolutely. And different brands will shrink in different amounts than other brands. So you need to know what ones shrink, what ones don't shrink. You know, when you're fusing something and then it shrinks after you've fused it, that's not good.
No,
because that is going to then pull in on that fabric. So do you wash a t-shirt? If you've got a 100% cotton t-shirt, I would wash it before you embroider it because you want it to be the size it's going to be after you've washed it before you embroider it, because otherwise your design can be all kinds of random when you're done washing it.
Yes.
It's going to look like one that you bought from the store because they don't pre-wash those. And, you know, if you ever wondered why when you buy it at the store it looks so great and then after you washed it, it looks like what the heck happened, that's why.
Yeah. So someone brought up a point that she didn't know that stabilizers can shrink. It's true. Stabilizers, they can shrink. They can also react to heat. And they can react differently for the different types of brands. So I always tell people the very best way to learn your product is to test it a little bit. You know, take your fabric and your stabilizer and take a piece of it and try it with water and try it with heat and see what happens.
We've got a spray bottle of this. I also have a spritzer of water that, you know, it doesn't have to be starched. You don't have to waste quote unquote starch to test. Just get it wet. Just spray it and see what happens. If it shrinks, then you know it's going to shrink before you put it on there. So shrink it, then fuse it, or whatever it is that you're doing with it.
Right. So we are going to talk more specifically about t-shirts and clothing in general.
Farther down the line. We're not going to get into depth here.
So we're going into more detail. But yes, it is super duper important to make sure that you pay attention to how the fabrics are going to, and your stabilizers are going to react to the way that you are actually going to use it. Stabilizer will absolutely react to steam.
Same concept.
Right, because steam is a form of water. It's also heat.
And heat,
And depending on what type of stabilizer it is, it will definitely react differently. So that's important. Obviously, we're not talking about specifically a wash away stabilizer right now because that's really going to react
it's going to be a
different.
whole other ball of wax there.
And as a whole, yes, that is a completely different scenario. But this is basically why we feel like it's so important to know what fabric we're starting with and prepare our fabric in the best possible way so that when we begin adding our stabilizers,
we get the result we want.
We get the result we want. Yep, that is number one important thing for us and for us to help you learn. And then we know that's what your end result is too.
Absolutely.
So we love Best Press, and I won't say that I never use traditional starch. I do use starch.
So when you're doing like large pieces, you are generally buying traditional starch because you can buy it in larger quantities, less expensive.
Yes, and I am a dunker. But if I'm a sprayer, if it's spraying, I'm using Best Press because it's way easier and it leaves less residue on my ironing board and all that kind of thing. So. It also doesn't slick up your floor quite as much if you have a hardwood floor. If you've ever sprayed like a starch or something on an area where you have like a hardwood floor or like linoleum or something, and then you walked by, it's like slick as ice.
I had never used Best Press before I started coming here as a customer. And I was like, wow, those wrinkles just disappeared. I was completely flummoxed. I was just like, look at that. So yes, I love the stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely love the stuff. All right. So wax pencils, these are a new item.
New. I mean, they're not new.
Not new, but new.
These were what we had when I started embroidering.
They're
but
newer
they kind of
to
fell out of like popularity.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So these are pretty cool. The idea of them is how well they will mark on a multitude of
basically anything but like white, light white, pink,
right,
or
the
blue.
super light things. So the problem is always those darker fabrics. It's so hard to mark the dark fabrics. And I like dark fabrics. I'm great with a white here and there and whatnot.
Right.
White just gets dirty. So I don't tend to use in quilting and in different things, I like colors so that you don't have to worry about all of that. And it's so hard to mark. So we've had these conversations before in previous things, but the wax pencil is a really great option. So again, you can see we've got a little sneaky code in the upper right-hand corner there that this is in the bundle. So if you would like to try these, this doesn't get included in that bundle. These are great for marking because, and they go away super easy as well.
Absolutely, yes. There is no chance that this is going to leave a permanent mark on your project.
Not at all.
None whatsoever. It is literally just kind of like wax. And there's a little string. You can kind of see it in the corner.
To sharpen it, you pull the string.
Yes,
it's that simple.
Really, it's fantastic, and we cannot say enough nice things about it. We did have someone ask a question about Material Magic,
which is a different type of starch. Yes, we do sell it, and it is stronger.
Yeah, it's very thick.
It's a lot heavier, and so if you're looking for a super starch kind of concept, the Material Magic would be a stronger starch.
Yes.
I personally prefer the Best Press, and if I want stronger, I just put more in.
Yeah.
That's my concept.
Material Magic isn't something that you can spray on and then kind of press or dry with your iron.
Right, you need to let that air dry.
It's a little gummier, and you really need to kind of let it air dry. Otherwise, it kind of makes a mess on your the back of your iron, and it can leave a residue. And it's very easy to scorch your fabrics with Material Magic, whatever product it is that they use to make that. It is a little more.
So we kind of use like a hovering technique to help dry the heat from the iron.
Yes.
Just hovering over your fabrics to dry the starch so that you can press it sooner and use it sooner rather than letting them air dry. You can't do that with Material Magic.
No, it doesn't really work.
It doesn't have the same techniques. It is great starch. It does take a lot longer to use it because you need to let it air dry.
Yes.
So And yes, we do sell it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So so far we've talked about the Best Press and pencils, and they are both included in our bundle, the bundle that you can purchase this year.
So, yep.
And so is this. This is the OESD Grippy Grid. This has come a long way. My original like Grippy mat was like this ugly brown color.
So this isn't the only Grippy Grid available out on the market. This is, I really like the black, to be honest.
It's a great size,
It is a really nice size. So what this does is basically give you a, it's a silicone mat. It gives you a marking area. You can use it for centering, so you can put your hoop in a centered area. You can put your fabrics in a centering area, and then it keeps your hoop from scooching. So how many of you guys have like laid on a table while you're trying to hoop something to keep your hoop from scooching around while you're trying to get your top hoop in place? This keeps your hoop from moving as you're trying to get that top hoop snapped into position. So Sarah's going to fight with the box and try to get that opened up. But basically it lays out, it gives you a centering position. Again, you can get your hoop in centered, and then you can center your fabric on top of that. And then it keeps the hoop from shifting while you're placing your top hoop down. It is a wonderful, oh wow, that is really wet. Way to go.
No problem.
Thank you for that.
I'm glad I can help.
Yeah, we're just gonna wipe that on that blanket. That's really wet.
So it kind of sticks to itself.
It really does. We're gonna fight with it. It's nice and grippy.
Yeah, it's very grippy, as you can see.
Holy crap.
So this would be much more exciting if it was on the big camera right now. You guys want to see us? This is hysterical, right? Here we're fighting with this to unroll it. It's super grippy.
Jeez, Pete. Almost.
Yep. So you might need a helper.
All right.
There we go. And like I said, it's very big. So all of your big hoops are going to fit underneath this.
But look at those beautiful markings. You can use this for centering, angles, all kinds of, it's just great.
Yes.
And obviously it grips well.
Yeah, it's
fantastic.
So if you have your hoop and you're trying to like get your top hoop in, you can see like it's not going anywhere. I am literally pushing it and it's not moving. So
when you're trying to get that top piece in place, you don't have to do the whole lay on the table thing while you are trying to get everything to stay where you wanted it.
Yes.
So super helpful. And again, this is included in our bundle. They are, of course, available separately. But there is, I love the corner marking. What does that say?
It says not a cutting mat.
Don't use this with your rotary. That's a no-no. Just throwing that out there.
Yes, yeah, it will. It's definitely not designed for that.
Because you will just cut right through it.
Yes.
That is not how this is designed. This is designed for a workspace, for putting things in position, but not for cutting.
Not for cutting.
Very, very
And
helpful.
the size of this is 17.5 by 25.
So super, super large. Thank you. You know, we try. We're here for your entertainment. All right. So the Grippy Grid is literally a tool to help ease the struggle of getting the hoops together. That is the idea behind this. So again, centering is a challenge for all of us. I mean, that's just part of it. And the bigger the hoops get, the harder that becomes because, you know, it's really easy to move your hand around a 4x4 hoop. Trying to get the bottom to stay there and get the top to go in when you're in a 10.5 by 16 hoop, that's a whole nother ball of wax, which is where the laying on the table thing comes in, because I certainly have done that.
We have all
you know, you got to use your stomach to hold in the bottom part while you're using your hands
elbows or
it's just like it becomes you know, a crazy purchase. So I love your question. And of course, you can purchase the bundles. Everything is currently available on they're already live on the website, so you can go and purchase them. The large bundles, we do have a limited quantity of the largest bundles available. So if you are already in the club, you would get all of the bundle without the bag. If you are not in the club, you will get the bag as well. The bag is right there behind me. So we do have a limited number of those. So I wouldn't wait too long. We've already sold 10. So we do have, like I said, a limited number of those. The smaller bundles, we don't have a limited number of those. So if you're only wanting bits and pieces, you could go with those smaller bundles. Those are available whenever. So
I would not have wanted to be the person who had to put those back in the original time, but it's in. I did it.
She did it. So anyways, yes, please feel free to make that purchase. They are on our site, and they are the Laboo bag bundle specials. There are the large bundles, and then there's 3 smaller bundles that are available. There's the Join the Club or I Want It All bundle, and then there's the 3 smaller bundles. One is the I'm a Quilter or Crafter bundle, the I'm Embellisher or In the Hoop Crafter, and the Specialty bundles. So those are the 3 that are smaller ones, and then of course the large one.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Boom. All right. So yeah, this is really fun and a brand new product. This is their brand new version of this. Everybody's had a Grippy one for a while.
They updated it, and it's just a phenomenal tool.
Yes.
So let's get into some stabilizers.
Yes.
Look at us both.
We're super excited about that.
So sticky stabilizers, these are super fun.
Yes.
And so easy. So easy that a lot of people think that I'm just going to use this for everything.
Yeah, it's the be all end all.
It's the end all to fix all, which unfortunately it's really not. So if you are one of those people, I totally understand your thought process of I'm just going to make this work for everything. But there really is a time and a place to actually hoop some things. So as I wrote in smaller print down at the bottom, a lot of people do prefer to use sticky instead of hooping. Just because it's easier doesn't mean that it's the best or correct way. So unfortunately, it isn't the end all for everything. No. So sometimes you can get away with it, even if it's not the best way, but sometimes it is not.
Yes, very true.
Let's talk about stickies. When, how, what types are they, all this good stuff. Yes. So the first one.
Why do we use it? How do we use it?
How do we use it? Yes. So
what club are we referring to? So we started, I think that's where we got interrupted this morning, isn't it?
We started talking about that a little bit. So is it Katie?
Katie, yeah.
I think. So we have a Laboo bag club. And if you are in the club, it's a very exclusive club. And this is the only time of year you can join the club, is during the boot camp. And it is, once you're in for good. You don't have to re-up or anything, which is, we think, pretty nice. We don't make you, buy into it again every year. So once you're in for good. And once you buy that, which basically is just buying the bundle that you're probably going to want anyways, you get this beautiful bag. If you are local to us, you can come in store and you get the specials that are in the bag today. And then every month we have a bag lady, bag person special. And if you're in store, you bring your bag and that says, yep, I'm in the club. And we give you the discount for whatever the special is. If you are not local to us, we give you a coupon code that there's actually a little section of our website that is for bag club specials, and whatever is in that section of the website is what's on sale, and you have a coupon code specific to that. They are good sales. They're not like, 10% off something that you didn't want to buy anyways. It's not like that at all. It's like 40% off. Yes, 30% off that, buy one, get one something.
Yep.
They're good sales. We make sure that it's a valuable club. It's not.
And it'll be on stabilizers. It will be on thread. It'll be on accessories. It will be on a variety of fabric. We have done all kinds of different things. So it definitely will be on a variety of different things that are applicable to most people, especially if you are an embroiderer.
Yep.
But a lot of people, I mean, even if you weren't an embroiderer, you would definitely find value to it, but you probably wouldn't need the bundle of stuff.
Of everything.
Yes.
But, the sales are on fabric some months, thread some months, stabilizer some months. We've done Kimberbell sales. We've done, it's been so many things. We've got a slide later on that actually talks about some of the previous sales, so you'll see.
And this is how you get into
that
the
is
club.
exactly how you get in the club. You buy
our
the Join the Club
bundle,
which is $225 and
some change.
52 cents. It's a whole bunch of 2s and 5s. Yep, $225.52, which is 40% off MSRP. So that's where that sale is. And you are automatically in the club. We'll add your email to the list. Every month you'll get an email that says, this is what's the sale this month. These are the dates the sale is good for. And you have that whole time frame. Sometimes it's the whole month. Like at Christmas, we usually just make it like 3 weeks. If it's not the whole month, it's almost the whole month, because we know it's a hard month to make shopping. You can't just maybe come between Christmas and New Year.
Right.
So, we're pretty, and we've never missed a month.
No.
This is not one of those things that we say we're going to do it and we don't do it. We've never missed a month. So there has been a special every month for 4 years.
Yes.
So, well, this is year 4.
This is year 4.
For 3 years.
Yes.
So that is how you can get in the club. And again, we do have a limited number of those available. So,
and we'll talk more.
We'll talk more about it
in a little
when
bit.
we get to that slide.
Yeah, because as much as we do want you to buy from us. We're not going to sugarcoat it. We do want you to buy.
Of course we do. I mean,
that's
how we keep our jobs.
Yeah. If you don't buy, then we don't get to keep doing this. But we really find education important here, and it's very important that we make sure that this isn't just a sales pitch.
We're here to show you what to do and how to do it and to turn out your projects the way you want. That is the big picture goal. Of course, we want to sell you stuff while we're doing it.
Yes.
We're not going to sugarcoat that either,
No.
but that is the main thing of this whole thing, is to make sure that you walk away knowing what to do.
Yes, so we don't want this to be like every other event that you've ever gone to where they tell you 2 things and then they just shove the product down your throat. We're not that type of shop, and we don't want this to appear to be that way either. So we do want you to buy, but we really want you to learn. So we're going to talk more about learning, and then we'll talk about the bag again, and then we'll talk more about learning. But we're not going to shove.
It's not going to be in every other page. This is buy.
No.
Because that's not what we're here for. And
no.
I mean, it is, but it's not.
Right.
So, Mindy, the shrinking of the different stabilizers, you just check. So spritz with water or starch or something and see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I keep a spritzer of water on my ironing board and I spritz it. And if it shrinks, then I know I got to prep that before I iron it, or prep it before I put it into the hoop.
Yes, absolutely. So, and again, like we said, you can't do this to everything. So,
Marilyn's,
here you go.
So this is Marilyn. Thank you. She's been in the bag club for a year. So thank you. I appreciate the testimonial. So thanks so much.
And one more quick question. Yes. And I promise you that the $225 that you are spending on that bag, you will save
greatly
over
the year.
Over the course of
absolutely
of the time
actually
that you
probably even less than the year. You'll make it back for sure.
Yes, absolutely. You will make it back on other stabilizers.
Not to mention that you're going to the 40% discount with everything that you're getting in the bag. It's totally worth it regardless.
Yes. And so there is only one time a year that you can buy it, and you can only buy it. It's always somewhere between $200 and $250 to get into it. It's been $225-ish, give or take a little bit, for the last forever. I used to live in Michigan and went to LeBou for years. Gene and his staff have always been great teachers. Oh, thank you.
We appreciate that.
So Gene is still around.
He
just
is.
chooses not to do anything virtually and spends
Yeah.
half of his year in Florida now. But
Something
he's still here.
He is around. Absolutely. Okay. Back to
Our
sticky
tearaway. Yeah. So we have sticky tearaway. And then below there, we talk a little bit about the different, because we don't want this to be super brand specific again. So these are the different brands that we sell in our store. The item pictured is in our bag.
Yep. So OESD has a nice smaller roll, which is why that one's in the kit, because it allowed us to put a lot more items in your kit. But the Kimberbell has the sticky back tearaway. Floriani calls it perfect stick tearaway. Baby Lock calls it stick tearaway. And our brand is called peel and stick. So they all work the same way. They've got a waxy side that is like the paper that you tear away once you have it in the hoop. And it will literally become a sticker. Once you've stitched whatever, you would then tear away once you've taken it out of the hoop, and it behaves just like a regular tearaway. So eventually will wash out through multiple washes. You will have no more residue. It will eventually completely disappear.
Eventually.
Eventually.
Lots of washings.
Lots of washings,
Yeah.
exactly.
So
these are great for towels, those kinds of things that you're like kitchen towel type thing, tea towels, those kinds of things. It's very, very popular for that kind of thing. You've got a couple.
I do. I have a couple things here to show you. We have sticky wash away. We have sticky cutaway.
So sticky cutaway is not used nearly as often as.
Wrong button. Sticky cutaway.
Sticky cutaway is not used nearly as often as the other two, which the wash away or the tear away.
Yes.
This would be, of course, being a cutaway. It's going to permanently stay in the project. It will not wash out. It will not ever wash out. It will be there no matter what.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more challenging when it comes to a sticky, because you've got to be able to remove the stick and cut, and it doesn't quite. It's a little bit different.
Yeah.
So it's just not used as often.
It's good for like a Carhartt jacket, like a bag that's difficult, because these things won't matter because you can leave the sticky cutaway in and you won't notice like a ring around it. Whereas if you used a sticky cutaway on like a traditional t-shirt, you'd have, wherever you cut it around, you'd have like,
you'd have that edge,
a weird echo.
You'd have the shadow look
and
through.
It would kind of like stick out. It wouldn't be great.
Yep, you would see it on the outside. You would see where the stabilizer ring is at. So sticky cutaway would also work really well for like a wall hanging that had a lot of stitches, like wording and things that you needed a good support for, but was harder to hoop because you had placement lines.
Exactly.
So something that you've got to do a crosshair stitch to know where to put it, but you need that support for all of the stitches that are going to go into it.
Yes.
So
excellent. Yes.
It's got a lot of uses. It's just not as commonly used as your wash away or your tear away.
And there are less brands that make sticky
cutaway. As you see underneath there, there's only the OESD version or a Floriani version that are the only ones that really carry a regular version of that.
And then we have
sticky water soluble. This is really great stuff. It's probably the most expensive stabilizer on the market. Some people absolutely love it. They just don't like the price point. So
it is definitely the most expensive.
It is really great, again, for a tea towel or not even a tea towel, but towel, because it will completely wash out. So if you are a craft show person, if you to make things for a show, and you need to have materials that will completely disappear so that it's beautiful from the get-go, this is a great material. However, it's got to be rinsed out, and you also need to work that price point into whatever you're selling your items for, because it is, again, not inexpensive.
Yes, and you need to follow the manufacturer's directions for the temperature of the water to get rid of it, because it's not always cold water dissolvable.
Right.
Sometimes you have to use warm or hot water, and if whatever it is that you're putting this on can't take that.
Right.
That's very important. You're not going to get it out. That's right. You're not going to get it out. So it's super important to pay attention to that. So I'm going to change the screen here, and we're going to show you a couple of things where we used sticky tearaways, sticky washaways, and I don't think I have a sticky cutaway here. So this towel, we're gonna talk more about this towel a little later, so I'm not gonna show you the front of it because it'll be much more impressive when you see it later. But this was a sticky washaway, and I left it in on this side so that you could still see it. So there is this very fine, it looks just like regular mesh water-soluble washaway, but it is sticky, so I can actually hold the towel up with what's left on there. The bottom part had sticky washaway on it, and this bottom part has been completely washed away. So this is what it looks like when it's still in, and then this is what it looks like when it is completely washed away.
So note that whatever you're stitching with this needs to be able to support no stabilizer after it's been washed out. Mm-hmm. So you always have to pay attention to that. You don't want to use a washaway on something mm-hmm. that's needing that support that's going to then pucker in after you take that off. You want to make sure that you're planning ahead so that you know, if you need that tearaway instead, because it needs the support to withstand whatever that fill stitch or whatnot is. Mm-hmm. What do you got there?
This one was like probably a sticky tearaway. Yeah, there's like just a little bit left on the back of that towel.
So sometimes when we have terry towels, it will pull a little bit on your loop. So you have to be gentle when you're pulling things off so that you don't have that. But you can see that you can't see. You can see that you can't see the extra around the outside edge. So that tearaway, you just pull towards your design and it tears right up into the design and you don't have any mm-hmm. Real residue even with that. So tearaway is still a fantastic option. And when you need to have a little bit more support because you have a design that has heavier stitching, mm-hmm. that would be the direction you would want to go. One thing that you'll want to pay attention to when you are using an adhesive, so a sticky, whether it be the cutaway, the tearaway, or a washaway.
Or a fusible.
Or a fusible. Anything that is sticky in any way, shape, or form, whether it's being fused or just stuck. This also includes tape.
Yes, absolutely. If you don't take it off immediately, it's going to be very, very, very difficult to get it off. This is sticky tearaway that has been left on the back of this. I didn't take it all the way off, and it is not coming off. It's like a permanent...
It's part of the project now.
Part of it, yes. And then I did another one that had like the fusible, and again, I left it on, so you can see it's really... It will come off, but it's
a lot harder.
Really, really hard to come off. So if you have something that you have fused on or stuck on, take it off immediately. It doesn't matter if it's something stuck to your hoop, if it's something stuck to the back of your project, get it off as soon as possible because it will
Otherwise, it's part of your project.
It will be part of your project and it will be much, much more difficult.
It definitely will.
To get off later on. That I can promise.
So which sticky should we use with cuddle or a minky fabric? So
typically cuddle and minky are a polyester type, so they're not going to shrink.
Right.
But they don't necessarily like hot.
Yeah, for me, it would depend on what are you doing with it?
Right.
Where is it going? So, I'm not generally stitching on cuddle or minky that's not going into something. So, mm-hmm. If it's going to go into a quilt and it's going to have something else put on the back, I'm for sure going to just use the tearaway or a cutaway because mm-hmm. it doesn't matter if there's still leftovers on the back because it's not going to matter.
Right.
So for me, it's not necessarily specific to what the product is, but how am I going to use it after the fact? So there's two parts to the question.
Could be tearaway, could be wash away.
could be a multitude of things.
Could be cutaway.
It could be cutaway. If you're going to have a backing on it and it's not going to show, you could use the cutaway. So if you've got something that's going to need a lot of support, that cutaway is very possibly your better option. You know, the back of your cuddle in your Minky is not going to be a problem to have a backing still on there. It's not a problem to peel it up and trim. Some things are super hard, like a terry towel. If you're trying to peel that sticky, you're going to end up with little bits and pieces. And when you're trying to cut away the excess, sometimes you accidentally cut the towel, where then having the tear away or a wash away that you don't have to get really close helps. So again, what is it going to be covered? Does it matter what the back looks like? Those questions are also going to come into play. So I know I'm being wishy-washy, sorry.
So she says embroidering a name on a cuddle quilt.
Embroidering a name on a cuddle quilt that is, so if it's already finished and you're going through both layers, I would use a probably a wash away, because I don't want anything left over afterwards, and it needs to look as pretty as possible. And I would also probably match my bobbin thread to my top thread so the back looked as pretty as it possibly could. If
single-sided?
If it's single-sided and I'm going to back it after the fact, I would use either the tearaway or a cutaway, depending upon what I had in my stash. If it's a little, really heavy stitching, sometimes text can have a lot of tunneling, and I would use the cutaway for support. So if there's going to be a backing, if you have it and there's a lot, depending upon the type of stitching on your font, I would use the cutaway if you have it, because it would give the most support. And then you can just trim, close around the letters, and it would continue to support that through washes. You wouldn't get any yuck after the fact, and it would last as long as it possibly could. That would be what I would do.
So if you were just going to do it on the backing itself, not all the way through, words are tough, and they
need a lot of support.
Need a lot more support. So I would definitely choose cutaway first if I have it.
If I have it, I would use that.
The sticky cutaway, that would be your better option.
I keep moving that.
That's okay. It's fine. You can move it wherever you want.
I just keep putting my hands on it.
It's all good. It's all good.
All right.
All right. So that takes care of stickies. So now let's talk about water-soluble stabilizer.
So I'm just going to answer that question. I'm sure somebody else is probably thinking it or asking. We do not have copies of this PowerPoint available for you out there. So this is not available as a download. So you can either take notes or copy your screen or whatever. Sorry.
If you buy the bundle, you will get a copy of the recipe cards, which we will talk about towards the end. And that will give you a place to talk about the different recipes and the recipes that we sort of use when we're doing our projects. We're happy to share our information, but we did work very hard on this, so we actually don't
This is a little bit
share
proprietary on that.
Our PowerPoint presentation. But if you have some sort of a smartphone, or you could literally just pause this and snap a picture of whichever ones you found necessary. Absolutely. So we hope you understand. All right. So water soluble. When do I use it?
When I don't want anything left.
Right. And how do I get rid of it? And what's the difference between sticky, rinse away, clear, mesh? And we probably should have added topper.
Yeah, I thought about it, and then I was like, I don't want to confuse, because I don't want people to think it's a stabilizer.
Right.
So I left it off, because I didn't want to put topper in there and have it underneath a stabilizer and then have somebody say, but.
Yes.
So I didn't.
So it's not a stabilizer.
It is not.
But some people will
try to use it as one.
And we have an example of what happens when you try.
We do. So this will be available as a recording forever and ever and ever.
Yep. As if you just want to spend an entire day with us, you could watch the previous 2 years too.
You could, yeah.
Our cameras have gotten a little better.
Yes, absolutely. So when do we use it? Water soluble is a wonderful invention. It completely dissolves with water. Again, the different brands are going to dissolve with slightly different temperatures dependent upon what the instructions say. So make sure that you are paying attention to what the directions are for that particular brand. The how do I get rid of it? That is the how do I get rid of it? How long you leave it under the water will depend on how stiff the materials are. So if you only rinse a little bit, just enough so you can't see it, they will be a lot stiffer. And, you know, we do like our, never mind, PG rated. So if you only rinse a little bit, it will have a lot more dense feel than if you, these are all really well rinsed.
This one's not.
Oh, okay. So there's no real give to this. I mean, I can literally hang on to just a little bit of it and it's standing up right on its own. All right. If we are
limpy.
Yeah, hefty. You know. All right. So depending upon how much you've rinsed something is going to be depending on how much is in there. You can re-starch and give it a little bit more body if you needed to. So if something's like, okay, now I need more, you know, if you're trying to make a doily, you don't want it to be super stiff. I mean, that's part of the lovely aspects of lace. That's like what you're looking for is you want it to look like you crocheted that, right? I mean, that's like the whole...
I worked super hard on that. I pushed that button on my machine and then walked away and probably did something on Facebook and YouTube.
Somebody else is probably thinking about, this is an absolutely stunning design. Whose is this?
This is Embroidery Library.
That is beautiful.
EMB Library. They do have some really fun lace. I wish I could find my stupid chicken.
I know your chicken was really cute.
I have to make
and
the
it's
chicken
still
again.
It's still in the
MIA.
Yeah,
I'm making chickens this weekend.
Making chickens. Okay. All right. So we've got lace doilies. These are both Kimberbell designs, and I think we need to.
That one needs to be a little more.
We need to give a little bit of starch into the flowers up at the top there because they're falling over. But these are really gorgeous designs. And when you buy that pack, you actually get all of the little pieces as individual designs too. So there's lots of playing power in these guys here. Stabilizing these properly makes all the difference in the world.
It does.
All right, so let's talk about that. So whether you have a design that comes out looking like that,
might need to zoom in on that a little. Yeah.
Okay, we don't like that, right?
Lace gone bad.
Lace gone bad. Lace not gone bad.
Yeah, same design.
Same design.
Just stabilized correctly.
Or not.
Yes.
So this is, we said we had a sample of, somebody thought that topper was actually a stabilizer. It's not. Don't ever try to make lace on embroidery topper. So topper is exactly that. It is supposed to be put on the top of your hoop to help with the pile and giving you a flat surface to stitch on. This is not a stabilizer.
It is
so
not.
Don't ever use it as a stabilizer.
It will not
or
work.
This will happen.
Yes.
And you don't want that.
Because these two are the same size. I mean, but, you know, without the proper stabilizer
look how much that shrank. I mean, that's just terrible.
It is. It really didn't work out well.
So a lot of places will, like when you read what it says in the directions or things like that, it will tell you to use 2 layers of mesh. So in your kit, you have mesh and you have Badge Master. So if you read the directions, it will very commonly say you need 2 layers of mesh to make blah, blah, blah. You need a bigger embroidery machine. So we can help you with that.
You mentioned you bought your machine from us. We are really absolutely happy to help you get a bigger hoop. We are definitely part of Hoop Envy Club.
Most definitely. So the mesh, and one of the ways that you can tell that this is water soluble, do you see the little dots? All right.
Versus
the dots are the key to water. Versus the grid that is no-show mesh. no-show mesh is cutaway. Dots are water soluble. So I think of the dots as being drops of water. That is my headspace of code, if you will, for stabilizer.
You will only make that
Mistake once.
I have embroidered something, just not paying attention whatsoever, like chatting to a customer, and I'm like, okay, grab something and put it in the hoop. I'm still just not paying. It's translucent, right? It should definitely be what I want.
Right.
And embroidered my lace on no-show mesh.
Yep. So that's my code, because every time you open up a thing of stabilizer, of course, you have to take the packaging off, which now you no longer have it labeled.
Yeah.
So we have come up with different ways of labeling. There's the slap bands. We gave you guys labels last year. We gave you labels with slap bands last year. They slid. Ow. So these go around your stabilizer rolls, and we gave you labels that said what those were and actually when to use them last year, that you could slide that on and then it went on there. So we've done lots of things that help with, yes, we are complete enablers. We are totally the kind of people that will help you spend your money. That's the kind of friends that we are. You should see, we're both broke all the time. You should totally buy that, Sarah.
I know. Okay.
We send each other pictures of things.
Yeah,
you need this.
Look what I got in my email
Look what I found.
Did you
totally
see this?
all the time? And then Monday we bring it in. Look what I bought. Thank you, you brat. You know. Thanks so much for that. Okay, so this is what most people will tell you to do. 2 layers of this, and it works fairly well. What we're going to tell you to do is 1 layer of each. So you want 1 layer of mesh and 1 layer of Badge Master. And what that will do is give you a 100% flat, beautifully stitched lace.
And Badge Master is not to be
confused with
topper. Wow, like from this picture, they look a little bit like each other.
They don't feel alike.
This is
super thick.
Super duper thick. It almost feels like a shower curtain material.
It is heavy.
And this feels like your saran wrap.
Yep. So, except crappier.
Except crappier, yeah.
All right. So this is a Urban Threads design, and it is obviously a feather. I did that with, when you're doing lace, of course, it's preferred that you have your bobbin matching. So you can see the edges are all beautifully lined up. I've got nice straight satin stitches. There's literally no oopses anywhere. All of my satin stitches that are coming out are perfect. That is what you will get if you stitch your lace or anything that is needing to be completely dissolved on this combination. I was trying to screw this up, okay? It's actually a lot harder to screw things up than you would think.
Yes.
All right, but this is just
same design,
1 layer, not 2, and you can see the gapping.
Scooch over a little.
Yep.
There we go.
You can see the gapping, the holes in my stabilizer. Even when there's a hole in the design, I should not have holes in my stabilizer.
Right.
All right, because what happens is you get gaping and your stitches don't line up as well because you can't stitch on air.
No.
It doesn't work. Your stitches get ugly. That's just what happens. So my satin stitches are not overlapping. I have holes in my design. So if I ripped this, I just stitched this out this morning. If I rinsed this, there would be a hole there. This would not come together. I'm not in the right spot. Sorry, hang on.
There we go.
All right. So that hole there would not, it would literally be a loop of an outside satin stitch. This is not connecting. Can you guys see that?
Right there. Yep.
All right. So if you don't have enough support, even a beautiful lace design is not going to come out right. So it's super important that you...
You can just rewatch.
Yep, it'll all be there, I promise. So it's very important. I stitch a lot of lace, and it's just one of the things that I really enjoy. It is extremely heart-wrenching. to stitch a beautiful design like this and have everything looking beautiful, and then you rinse it and you get something like this. This was stitched on 2 layers of this.
Before I introduced her to Badge Master.
Yes, this was before Sarah worked here and I didn't know Badge Master existed. We didn't sell OESD at that point, so I didn't even know, I had no idea what it was.
I was like, you need Badge Master. She's like, what?
I was like,
I'm
well,
like,
what's
you
that?
need this.
And it's changed my life, people. Let me tell you, because I am a lace person, and,
Yeah,
and
she loves lace.
I will show this in more detail later, but these pieces took hours just to stitch, and then I sewed them onto the jacket. I mean, if I hadn't, those wouldn't have come out.
No, they would not. They
wouldn't have matched, and they would have fallen apart. So it's super, super important that you have that layering effect before you start.
And there's just something special about adding these 2 pieces together. If you were to put 2 layers of Badge Master, it's a hot mess. It just doesn't work the same way. But when you add the Badge Master on top of the no-show or the water-soluble, the dissolve-away mesh, it is just so much better. They complement each other so well that it makes for a super-duper flat.
I mean,
project.
that's just, there's nothing there. It's just whoosh.
Yeah. Cheryl is...
Thank you for that commentary.
Exactly. You know, OESD has, you know, every company has like their specialties.
Their thing.
They have been making like 3D structures and tiling scenes for a very, very long time. And these are 2 of the things that I just think that they have the market on. They just do a phenomenal job.
They really do.
And this combination of stabilizer, it really, really does make such a big difference in how your lace is going to come out. So
everybody okay?
Definitely recommend using that to prevent something like that from happening.
It's just, it breaks your heart when you've done all of these. I mean, this was, I kid you not, hours of stitching. And it didn't look bad in the hoop. And then when you rinse it and it looks like that, I mean, it's literally like, oh.
Yeah, this one's a little harder to see, but there is a little bit of a gap in the ring around the top, like, right there.
Right in the...
So while this would still stay together, if you had that start to happen in multiple places, like this, it will just start to come apart on you. And you definitely do not want that to happen.
No, and when, you know, if you get to the point where you're creating lace, which the jean jacket, I created all of those, you know, you can't trust the creator.
Not always.
You need to have the materials that at least you don't have that falling apart on you, so that, you know, it kind of fixes the pieces for you. So the 2 pieces, and we didn't even go that far into the spreadsheet, or I keep calling it a spreadsheet, the PowerPoint piece. These are the 2 materials that we're using: a wash away mesh and a layer of Badge Master. And the Badge Master goes on top as long as there's no fabrics.
Yes.
That you're using.
If it's an applique, like Cheryl mentioned, doing like a 3D structure, they put fabric in there. A lot of times, if you're putting an applique piece of fabric on top of something, the Badge Master is slick. So if you use like a glue stick or something to hold your fabric in place, it just keeps sliding right off. So you'll want to make sure that if you're appliquing with a water-soluble lace type piece, you want your Badge Master to be on the bottom, and the grittier
it just gives you a grip to keep the fabric from shifting.
Yes.
All right. So
that's
we do
the 2 combination.
Yep.
Yes. Water-soluble and Badge Master. Right. We do have what?
We didn't turn the page on the
We did not.
We just started
talking.
We got excited.
We got excited. So
I might like this stuff a little bit. So there's the wash away. Again, everybody has their own name. Anything that is sheer that you don't want to see The remainder that you're just going to want to see the stitches. So, of course, freestanding lace. And specifically, Kimberbell's directions are 20 seconds in cool water. Again, we've got that there.
Theirs is one of the only cool water ones.
Yep. So check the instructions because different brands have different instructions. I personally like the warm water because it dissolves so much faster.
It does.
But, you know, you do need to pay attention to what it's telling you to do. So we've got labels such as Aqua Mesh, Wet and Gone, Dissolve Away Mesh, and Sew and Wash, depending upon which brand you are purchasing.
Yes.
So all the same stuff. And again, that is the mesh with the little dots in it. The other is the Badge Master. That is the heavier plastic type stuff. This is the heavier film. The only other company that has anything similar to this is the Laboo, and that is called Water-soluble Heavy Duty, and it feels pretty much like this. It's probably pretty bad that I usually just buy Badge Master.
Yeah, yeah.
It works pretty much the same though.
It does.
So if you want a softer product, you're going to need to rinse this a little bit longer. This does tend to be heavier, so you need to rinse longer to get all of the material out.
And the Kimberbell and the Badge Master are part of our
both
bundle.
part of the bundle.
Yes.
And then, of course, the sticky is the other type. And yes, we already talked about this awesome stuff. So all of the different names, some of these are a little like mouthful. I love Baby Lux. Dissolve Away Mesh Adhesive Backing. It's like, really? You couldn't come up with something
Right?
else?
Just sticky wash away.
Just
Why can't it
sticky,
just be
yeah.
sticky wash away?
But yeah, so there's lots of different names for the same things. This is just the same page as what I had before.
Yep.
So don't see any new questions popping up. So
No.
let's talk about some cutaway. I'm just going to put these on the floor.
Okay.
And do we want these in a pile or?
Probably. That's a good idea to keep it together, right? Want me to set it? You got a space? Okay.
Maybe. I don't know how long I'll have that space, but we'll
All
go from there.
right. So,
All right.
cutaway. You probably see a theme here. When do I use it? How do I get rid of it? What's the difference between sticky, standard, and mesh? So let's talk about the different types, and then we'll explain why we use them. We get a ton of questions about clothing.
Yes.
And Floriani Power Mesh, this is a new product for them. New in the last year-ish, year to 2 years.
2 years,
They've
I think.
had fusible mesh
They
for
just changed
a
the
very long
name.
time, and they made it just a
They
tad
made
bit
it
thicker.
Yep, a little
So
bit
it's a little
heavier.
bit heavier. So you are definitely the clothing expert here. You definitely put more things on clothes than I do.
I like to embellish stuff that I buy. You know, I'll go and buy a cheap sweatshirt or a jean jacket from somewhere and add stuff to it. You know, I certainly do my fair share of the Kimberbell other stuff, but I definitely have, that's really what I started doing. That was how I entered the embroidery world, was adding things to clothing. That was all I did at first. And I definitely can tell you how not to do it because I've made all of the mistakes before, from not fusing to not getting my piece of stabilizer large enough.
Right.
I have made all of the mistakes because I was one of those people that said, no, I don't need to have a machine lesson. I'll just figure it out on my own. And yeah, I've done it all wrong. So I can tell you guys how to do it right.
Right. Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
The fusible makes all the difference in the world when you are working on clothing. So if you are doing a t-shirt, a moisture wicking type, polo type thing, you are definitely going to need the fusible mesh. Whether you're using Floriani's or somebody else, you definitely need the fusible. The first thing that you're going to want to do is figure out what size hoop, and then you're going to cut your stabilizer to fit the hoop, not the design. because it has to fill the hoop or it doesn't do any good. It has to fill the entire hoop. That was the first mistake I made when I first started is I'm like, okay, I just want to put my name on this. So I would, cut a piece of stabilizer that was 2 inches by, 4 inches, and I put it on and I thought I was rocking this world, right? No, I was not rocking anything.
No.
It was puckered, but I didn't know any better because, what happens when you buy something from the store? Those are puckered too. So I thought I was doing fine, but
as soon as you wash it, it's
I was like, okay, well,
that's what everybody else is like.
I didn't realize,
you could make it
I
better.
could make it better until many
years down the road, or many projects down the
road? Many projects. We
Yeah.
won't go years, but many moments down. And I was like, there's got to be a better way.
Right.
And I did finally start coming in, and I was like, maybe that was my problem. And so the first thing to do is to make sure that you're cutting your stabilizer the size of the hoop. So if your size doesn't quite fit in that 5x7 and you have to bump up to a 6x10, your stabilizer still needs to be the size to fit a 6x10 hoop, not that 5x7, which that changes drastically.
It does.
So it is a huge, huge difference on what you're doing. And you need to fuse the whole piece, not just where your design is going to sit. The whole piece needs to be fused to your t-shirt or whatever it is that you're doing. The next thing that I generally will then get, well, how do I get it back off? Because I don't want, all of that excess still there. The fuse will come off if you just hit it with your iron again. So when you reheat that fuse, it just peels right back up again. So it's super easy to get that back off. So you turn that back upside down after you've stitched, hit it with your iron again, and it will come right back up, and then you can just trim so it's nice and tight on the back of your design. So you don't have to have this whole mess on the back. It's only there for while you're stitching.
Yes.
I have fused more than one layer when I have to have multiple for support.
Choose the same brand.
But you need to have the same item that you're fusing. You don't want to mix
so
things. So if I have no-show fusible power mesh, if that's what I'm putting on there, then I'm going to put a second layer of power mesh on there. I'm not going to go grab fusible backing or Easy T and put that. I'm not mixing medias there. I'm going to use the same thing. So if one of the questions that we got asked was, if I have a really dense design and I need to add stabilizer to keep that, because yes is the answer. I need to add stabilizer if I have too many stitches. I have a couple choices. I can add tearaway, or I can add
a second layer,
another layer of cutaway.
Yeah.
So depending upon what the design is going to depend on which direction that I go. And unfortunately, that is definitely variable on the design.
Yeah, it's very design specific.
And it is.
Is the design really this big?
Right.
And you've got, 50,000 stitches, or is it this big and you have 50,000 stitches? This is going to be much more problematic than this.
Exactly.
Because you've got
because
more
you're spreading
stitches.
it out.
Yes.
In the hoop, if it's spread out, it's going to be a very different scenario.
Yeah. So let's rephrase what we just said, or just reiterate. If you're going to do two fusibles, the two fusibles need to be the same. And the reason that they need to be the same is because they will have the same temperature.
Fusing property.
Yeah, and they will fuse the same. When they will react the same to the iron. Your fusible power mesh from Floriani will not fuse the same as your poly mesh from OESD. They are not going to react the same.
Nope.
Do not
And it will not
mix
fuse
them.
the same as Easy T.
No, they have different temperatures and the glue melts differently. So you do not want to mix your fusibles.
You'll end up with bubbles. And you're not going to get the actual stabilization help that you're expecting because you're going to get pockets of spots that don't actually have it fused.
Yes.
So if I'm fusing, I'm using 2 layers of the same product.
Yes.
If you are using a mesh and you turn, so you've got 1 layer here and 1 layer here, you will get a little bit stronger support because of the way that those meshes are created. So you can up the stitch count of support that you'll be getting with those 2 layers.
Because they're like it's like fabric. They have some stretch to them. So if you are changing the direction, then you are altering the stretch
and where you're getting the strength at. So I generally, if I'm having to add so I've got a peacock on one of these. Of course, it's on the bottom. This guy had, I think, 62 thread changes. There's a lot of stitching in here. And so I did have lots of stabilization in there. And I did add 2 layers. And I then reheated and I peeled it up and I just trimmed, close so that I don't have the bulk of excess, but so that I don't have puckers. This is, oh my gosh, 8 years old. I have washed this so many times, and it's still a beautiful embroidery. And this is one of those stretchy,
really everything is
super
like
stretchy
nowadays,
jean
right?
jackets. This is not a super stable. It used to be when you bought a jean jacket, it was super stable and it didn't matter.
Not anymore.
You could put anything on it. But this one was not one of those. It was, I don't even know where it came from. But, I have since added, rhinestones, and I've got the rhinestones in the eyes of the peacock feathers and things. But this had 2 layers of no-show mesh fusible, and then I peeled those back and trimmed off the excess after it was stitched. So, like I said, this has been washed, I don't even know how many times. So, round for a really long time. If it is super stable, there are still some jackets that you can find that are not stretchy. I used just a tearaway.
Yep.
So, just because it's a jean jacket doesn't mean you have to use that mesh. So there are certainly, when you're using clothing,
know your product.
There is not necessarily a end all, it has to be a fusible no-show mesh. It does definitely depend, but those are certainly going to be
right. You want to use
common.
A fusible when your fabric is stretchy.
Yes.
Because if you do not use a fusible when your fabric is stretchy, the fabric is going to stretch while you're stabilizing, while you're embroidering it, which is going to distort it. It might look fine in the hoop, but when you take it out,
as soon as it comes out of the hoop,
it is going to just sort of shrink back. So that is definitely something. If your product is going to be stretchy, it's a t-shirt, it's a sweatshirt, it's a jacket that has stretch in it, there are jeans that have stretch in it, you really, really, really need to have a fusible. And a sticky is not a substitute for a fusible.
No, because once you've taken that out of the hoop, you've lost the fusible.
Right.
Because you tear it away or it's not there anymore. And once you wash that, it's free for all. It can shrink, it can shift, it can do whatever it wants to do because it no longer has any rules holding it in place. So if you have any, your t-shirts, your sweatshirts, your stretchy jean materials, whether they are blue jeans that you want to, do the pant legs of or whatever, or a jean jacket, anything that is a clothing piece that is stretchy, whether it's a polo, a t-shirt, any of those, the moisture wicking, those are probably the hardest things that I have ever stitched on is a moisture wicking type shirt. That is absolutely a fusible. You cannot get away. And most of the conversations that I have when you guys come in the store and say, okay, I'm going to do, I need to do this shirt. And I'm like, okay, you need this fusible. You're like, I don't want to fuse anything to it.
Right.
You have to. Unfortunately, there's no way to get around that. If you don't reheat it with an iron and you peel that back, you'll end up with little white, bumpy stuff around it. It will eventually come off in the wash, but it's yucky. Just hit it with your iron and then peel, and then you won't even get the residue. It'll work out really, really well, promise. But you have to have that fusible. It makes all the difference in the world. If you are trying to do one of those moisture wicking that are super stretchy, they're super thin, they suck, quite frankly. They're like the hardest thing ever to stitch on, but that's what everybody wants, right? That's like, if somebody wants a company, you know, they want those moisture wicking because their people are working either landscaping or, you know, cleaning business or whatever. That's what the shirts that they want, and they want their company logo, and they want their phone number, and this tiny little.
Let's not talk about the logo, because that's a whole nother conversation.
But you know, they want these tiny little letters, and you're like, that it's not going to work, you know. But you need the fusible, so that's the first thing. You're going to hoop size, make sure it stays in a 4x4, because you don't want to go any bigger than that, because it's just going to be a pain in the butt to fit next to. I'm sorry, I just hit my microphone. It's going to, you know, fit on that polo over there. You don't want to go any bigger than a 4x4 for that. I have used Material Magic on those. If not, best press and douse it and let it air dry. I don't even try to heat that.
Because you'll stretch it.
Starch the living crap out of it. You want that as stable as possible. And then fuse your no-show to the back. The color doesn't matter, all right? Fuse that to the back. Once you have that, you're going to need a topper. So
we're going to talk about toppers.
We're going to talk about toppers in a little bit. I know it sounds like a little bit of overkill, but it keeps everything because that material, it doesn't look like it has anything, but the stitches just like to suck right inside of it. It just, like I said, it sucks to stitch on. So starch the living daylights out of it, put a fusible on the back, and then use a topper. And that is the best success that I've had with those. Any of these other stretchy, you're going to want, like I said, figure out your design size, get the hoop that it's going to need to be, cut your stabilizer to fit that, and then fuse that on. Once you're done stitching, you can then re-hit that with an iron, pull it back, and then trim close to the design.
So 2 things to think about when you're doing this. This is staying with this. So this part of your jacket isn't really going to be stretchy anymore.
Correct.
So
think about that.
Think about the placement of your design and how your shirt is going to stretch around you.
Yep.
Because
you're removing the stretch out of wherever you're putting your design, because you're fusing, and it's a permanent fuse. The area that is. So if this was, you know, coming across the front, I've done that with iron-on, that I didn't think about the iron-on part not stretching, and I did it on an athletic t-shirt, and I went to put it on, and I was like, oh,
that's comfortable.
That's not gonna work. So do think about that. So this is the back of a jacket, but this is a built-in in the Dream Machine, if anybody's wondering where that one came from. And I just used a variegated thread on that. So that is the key.
Yes.
Fusible is an absolute. There is a non-fusible mesh that's got other uses, but not
this.
Clothes. When you have clothing that is stretchable, it absolutely has to have the fusible. So these guys here, 2 layers, you can see that there is absolutely no pucker. All right, they look beautiful. I was just being ornery, and I was like, all right, I actually wanted these to sink in. That was like my goal. I just kind of wanted I wanted to put my name on it, but I didn't want it to be obvious that it was my name. So I found these really cool Celtic letters, and I put this in there. So I did an absolute no-no, but I did this on purpose because I just kind of wanted to see what it was going to look like. There's absolutely no stabilizer on here. It looks like crap. So I wanted them to sink in. What I should have done is used a tearaway. But there is all kinds of puckering, which I don't know that you guys can see super well there, but there is
a little bit at the top there.
All kinds of puckering. It's bad. It's really bad. Don't do this. Even I did it intentionally to see how bad it was going to be. And it's really bad. I know you guys can't see it super well on camera, but it's really bad. I think you can see right here how it's like literally, maybe if it's sideways, is that better?
Yeah, you can see a little bit better there.
It's really, really bad. So, the hood was going to show, and the other side. So I was like, okay, well, how can I do that one? And you can see the puckers. It
might have been like they make like a fusible tearaway.
They do. And that's what should have been done here, is a fusible tearaway.
Because
so
then you could have
I could have fused it,
stabilized
it, and then torn it away. But I didn't.
Right.
And that is pucker heaven. I mean, it's just crazy. So.
And you can see like the
design didn't line up.
Didn't reline up.
Nope.
You've got some extra.
I mean, it's bad, guys. I know the camera doesn't. You can see that anyways, where the satin stitch isn't over the underlay, and it's like that on both of them. So it is extremely important that you stabilize things properly. This is not the right stabilizer, but same type of thing that we were just talking about. I didn't need a lot, so I just used the tearaway, but this is literally just a running stitch. So you can't, but it's got adhesive on there, so it's not got any puckers. So look at what you have and go, okay, what do I want my end results to be, and make that decision. But I can't tell you enough, if it's got stretch in it, fuse it. If you can, fuse it.
Yes.
Because the results will be so much better. This is a tiny, tiny, tiny little guy, right? Fused. We got no show. What is that? I think that's no show. That's not our no show though.
No.
I bought this sample. I didn't do it. But it's so dang cute.
It is so dang cute.
So super important that we are using that mesh to support.
Yep.
So you want to talk about these?
I do. Let's, we have a couple questions. We're not ignoring you. So is Floriani Power Mesh in the bundle? Yes.
Yes, it is.
It is. That is definitely in the bundle. And then with the fusible mesh work on baby onesies, it's perfect for baby onesies.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And then someone else said, fusible tearaway? Yeah, it's not in your bundle of stuff, but they do make a fusible tearaway. I'll tell you my first experience with fusible tearaway, I was like, really? Why?
What am I supposed to do with this?
But for like, that is a perfect example of why a fusible tearaway could work. Sometimes you're doing something completely out of the box. When it's fusible, it becomes stable. So when you fuse something that is stretchy to something that is not stretchy, it becomes stable. And then sometimes there's no fusible wash away. There's sticky wash away, but pulling the sticky away from, like the inside of a shirt, it's hard. Sometimes it's super hard. So we need something that is stable that we can get rid of, because when I reheat something that is fusible, the glue becomes basically liquid again. So I can pull it away.
Becomes gooey, and then you can pull it back in.
Yeah. So it's not something that I use like a ton of. It's just one of those little things that is in my arsenal that I've got when I just can't figure out another way around it. It's just one of those things.
Yep. And there's or do you float something underneath versus putting another layer of fusible? I just wanted to point that out. There's a difference in the hand of your project if you put tearaway versus if you put another layer of fusible. So no-show mesh is extremely flexible and pliable. It's very, very soft. When you put tearaway in there, it's going to stiffen up the embroidery. So depending upon where it's going to be, if I'm putting it on jacket back, it doesn't necessarily matter if it's a little stiffer or not. If I'm putting it on the front of my shirt, it matters a lot, whether it's going to sit there like a, you know, bulletproof piece or whether it's going to flow with my body or not.
It takes a lot of washing to get.
And it takes a lot of washing to get out that heavier tearaway. So depending on where I'm putting it, it's definitely going to be, for me anyways, going to be the choice to put a second layer of fusible mesh on a clothing piece because of the hand that I want that to be. That's kind of a lot of the point of that mesh, is how flexible and how soft it is, but yet how stable it is. That is kind of the whole advantage to it. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yep, I missed that one. Thank you.
Yep.
So the other thing is we talk about like on Lisa's jacket, stability. So this design was done 2 times, and this one over here was done with a fusible, so you can still see it's partially fused down here. So there's a fusible no-show mesh, and then I also did add a heavyweight tearaway. This one has non-fusible mesh and that same heavyweight tearaway. When you look at these on the surface, if you don't look too closely, you might not notice that they're super different. But
you suck. I'm
right? The whole design. So this one is the way it's supposed to be. So it actually came out perfect.
Came out really, really nice.
This is one of those examples of, like, you know, if your shirt is super busy, you probably don't want to put a design like this on. So not a great choice, but it is. I had knit, so that was that. So on this one, we'll start at the top here. So right under the T, that'd be great. So where the T is, you can see, just like on Lisa's jacket, and then underneath it, the underlay stitches don't line up with the satin stitches. So the fabric itself, because it wasn't stuck to anything, as it was stitching, it literally just started moving the whole thing. It actually moved the whole thing so much by the time it got to the bottom that my mood on is completely over top of the sunglasses versus this.
I didn't get that.
Oh, thank you.
Siri's going to help us out. So if you notice on the top one, this is the unstabilized or improperly stabilized part on the top. It is on top of the glasses. The correctly stitched one is not.
And literally, the only thing that is different between these
is
two
a fuse.
Is that I used a fusible no-show mesh versus a non-fusible no-show mesh. And I know that some of you are like, well, I could just use a temporary spray adhesive. I am here to tell you that your temporary spray adhesive is not going to react the same way. It is not going to give you the same adjustment as actually fusing to your whole project.
It doesn't, because the sprays are not consistent. You're going to have holes. So it's kind of like what we talked about with the 2 different types. You're going to have spots. So it'll work in some spots and then it won't work in other spots. So you're going to get holes of issues.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Yep, you're going to get a whole lot of issues with holes.
Holes of whole lot of issues. Yep. So this is good job for screwing up.
I know, right? Sometimes it's
Do you know how hard it is to make bad samples, you guys? It's like we try to screw it up and
like,
it doesn't. Why didn't it screw up when you want it to? It totally should have screwed up and it didn't. So fusible is so important. And I know it's a pain. And the whole thing of, I got to use a how big piece of stabilizer?
Right.
Yes, you do. Unfortunately, that's part of the gig. So sometimes it's better to make your design just a smidge smaller so that it will fit in that 5x7 hoop than to have to jump out to that bigger one, especially depending upon where it's going.
Yep.
So it absolutely has to be the size of the hoop, not the size of the design. I can tell you this from past experience. Don't pin your stabilizer behind where it's going to go. That doesn't do it. Okay, that won't happen. That doesn't do it. And don't only fuse the little 2x2 square behind where it's going to be and think that the hoop is going to stabilize the rest of your shirt that's stretchy. And God forbid, don't.
Yeah, we're going to show you what happens when you do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
But yeah, don't hoop
all of those things.
But don't pull once it gets in the hoop. So.
All right. And again, no show has the grid. Remember, we talked about that. So it's literally got the little lines, not dots.
And if it's fusible, you should
It's got a shiny side.
that part to that. And so you definitely want to make sure that you put that shiny side
towards your product.
Your project, yes.
Not towards your iron.
Or towards the bottom of your machine. So
yes.
All right.
So if you're using a fusible but you don't actually need to fuse it, pay attention to what side that's going to, especially if you're going to have to iron it at some other point.
All right, so Lynn says, I have a very dense high stitch count on t-shirts. I use 2 pieces of woven fusible. How well does woven work? That's a really good question. So I'm going to tell you that for me personally, I would not use a woven on the back of a t-shirt. And the reason that I wouldn't use a woven on the back of a t-shirt is because it's going to change the consistency of the shirt, and it's going to leave a ring around that design when you cut it out. Grab the little, the one that I cut out, yeah, that one. So on this one, where I cut the mesh, or where I unfuse the mesh and then I cut it around, like, you don't really see the definition around the outside edge of that. If I had a fusible woven on the back of
there
this,
would be a line.
You would see literally like
a
almost
delineation of where.
Exactly. So you would be able to tell exactly where that is around your shirt. And depending on the consistency or the color of your shirt, you will see that
the shadow
of that behind that.
Because like the fusible wovens, those don't come back up. Like the mesh will.
Right.
That doesn't release when you rehit it. It doesn't do that same release, peel, and cut thing like your, it doesn't release the same way.
No. Yeah. So if it is woven, I know, and we're not trying to argue with you, but if it is woven, then it will not come up the same way. It will also not stay with the design the same way. And no matter how hard you try, you cannot trim it as close to the design as you would like. Right. And of course, with 2 layers, it will be hard. This is translucent. So it doesn't leave any trace underneath it whatsoever. So this is definitely the better way to do this. So if she's using probably Dream Weave, if it's Floriani,
probably. No, it's not.
I still would not.
Floriani, if you're using the Dreamweave, it is not designed. It is not a stabilizer to be used alone. Right. If that is your question, their woven, their Dreamweave is a wonderful product as a add-on support, but it is not to be used individually. And again, I wouldn't use 2 different types of fusibles. So if you're going to use a fusible web, meaning the no-show mesh or power mesh in this instance, and you're needing a second piece, I would use, again, a second piece of the same type. You always can use a tearaway underneath if that will work for whatever your end game is. Like I said, it's going to change the hand of your finished embroidery. If using a tearaway is going to stiffen the design more than a second piece of mesh would, because of the consistency of the types of stabilizer that you're putting in there. It's going to change the way it feels. Totally your choice. You can always do that. And tearaway will absolutely give more support to the product. Absolutely will do that.
Just is not the recipe that we would use. So we would definitely use, again, we highly, highly, highly recommend a fusible no-show mesh as your base for your t-shirts. Your t-shirts, your sweatshirts, your baby onesies, whatever. This will give you a much cleaner finish when you're done and you tear or you don't tear away. You actually trim away close to your design.
And so, Jane is saying, I hate when the fusible stays on the back of a t-shirt. Unfortunately, if you don't have something that stays on the back of a t-shirt, your design is not going to stay the same shape through multiple washings.
No.
Even the first washing, it's going to move. So you'll start to get puckers, you'll get fabric that shifts inside. If you don't have that fusible there, the design won't stay the same shape. And over time, it's going to just continue to deteriorate the size and the shape of the design. So if you mean the residue, if you heat it, the residue should come off. You should not have, if you reheat it with an iron, it should peel up without leaving a residue.
Right, right, so, absolutely.
Okay.
So you shouldn't have any of that. Again, if you're using the iron,
yeah, those irons are great.
It will release the glue, and then you can pull it off.
You should be able to pull that up.
Always be careful when you're trimming away, because you obviously do not want to snip in there.
Into the shirt.
And we've tried it all. I promise, like as Lisa was showing, we have literally tried 1,000 different ways of doing this over the years. And we're not new to embroidery.
Nope.
We've both been embroidering for many, many, many years. And the products are different now than they were 10 years ago or 15 years ago when we first started doing the embroidery stuff. I mean, the stuff has completely changed over the years. So new products that are on the market are definitely far superior to old products. So if you have like some old fusible that's maybe hanging around for a while, maybe you got it at an event, 8-9 years ago or something like that, I promise you what they're using in their fusibles and their glues and their adhesives right now are much better. Your phone is having
My phone is having a meltdown. Good Lord.
All right, so we're still talking about the no-show mesh. Judy says she was taught a long time ago, for every 10,000 stitches, you need a layer of stabilizer. Is this still true? It's such a weird question because a lot of it depends on the size of the design, the density, and it also depends on the type of stabilizer you're using. We're going to talk a little bit in a little while about, we talked a minute about preparing our fabrics, and someone has already brought up a woven interfacing. So there are some times where this may not necessarily be accurate depending on the project that you're putting it on.
Right. So in some ways, yes, that is still fairly accurate, sort of. But there's a lot of things that you can do to adjust that rough number. Unfortunately, the rough number is very fluctuating based on what hoop are you using, how close are the stitches in the hoop. And unfortunately, I know where that number came from because I was at the same event that you got that number from. But the actual math to coming out with that number was in a 4x4 hoop. And the design, is right here. So if you have the design that's this size and it has that many stitches in, then you need to add another piece. If I have this big of a design and it's 10,000 stitches, that's a whole different matter than if I have a design that's this big and is 10,000 stitches.
Right.
Two very, very different things.
So how the design was digitized, the type of stitches, if it's all satin stitch letters, oh God, yes.
Whole different matter than if it's a fill or if it's, running stitches that are going all over the place. Is it light, airy stitches? Is it, there's so many different things that come into play. Did you prep the fabric? Because if you starch the crap out of the fabric, then we're going to get there too, Cher. Hang in there. The starching of the fabrics will help it absorb more stitches without having to add stabilizer. If you did put a fusible woven on the backing of that with a tearaway or whatever else, it's going to add more support without having to add any other types. So there's a lot of things to make that still true but untrue.
Yeah.
So that's a very ambiguous answer.
Yes.
Did you like it?
Well, and I think when they first came out with that number, I also don't think our hoops were 10 by 16.
They weren't. I think our biggest hoop was about an 8 by 12 when they started talking about that. So the designs weren't ever the sizes that they are now.
Right. So now it can just be so different. So I pay attention to the
politician answer.
I pay attention to like the density of the design over the space and choose that. If I have areas where I have lots of stitch intensive pieces, I'm almost always going to have more than one layer of stabilizer.
Right. So the reason that we're not giving you a stitch count answer though, Judy, is because of all of the variables that come in. So, you know, you can't just look at a design and go, oh, this one's 8,000 stitches. I'm going to be fine with my one piece of stabilizer. I don't need to do anything else.
My one piece of tearaway stabilizer.
Because that doesn't necessarily equal it's going to always come out. So that's why we're not giving you a specific stitch count answer. It could be your one piece of whatever is going to be great. It could also equal, nope, you need to do this, that, and the other thing based on whatever else is going on, which is why we're not going to give you a number and say this will always work based on one piece.
Yes.
Because it won't. There is no magic number that is always going to work.
Right.
Unfortunately, that is no longer an honest answer, and which is why we're not going to give you that answer. So, and it's not politician because it's honest.
Right.
So, no-show mesh, fusible versus non-fusible. This one is non-fusible. So many uses, whether you're quilting in the hoop, whether you are building a project on top of something and you just need a cutaway to build it on. This is a great one. I don't know that I put a regular quote-unquote cutaway in here because I didn't have a picture of anything to put in here. So some of those projects you could build if you needed a little bit more substance.
Yep.
In there, you could put a standard cutaway versus a mesh cutaway for, like, for instance, a zippered bag. If you were building something in the hoop, that would be the same kind of thing that you could do with either. You could substitute one or the other. This is, again, a non-fusible version of what we've been talking about. So again, really, really lightweight cutaway, going to give you strength without adding weight to your project, which is why it's great for that quilting in the hoop kind of thing.
We use this in our Kimberbell projects all of the time.
Pretty much exclusive when it comes to creating those quilt squares to build all of the pillows and the wall hangings and those projects and things like that.
Yeah, because we're also adding batting and quilting to a lot of those different things.
Exactly. So, and that batting is one of those things that we're changing the layer of stabilizations and things that we're giving the boost of what that hoop can handle.
Yep. Yep. So on its own, no-show mesh is good for crafty type things, bags and things like that. But we probably aren't using this for clothing and different types of things like that, because there's no way to stick this to our project to make our projects, to keep the fabric or whatever it is that we have stuck to our stabilizer, because that's super important.
Yep.
Is this the type I would use with 2 sheets in my hoop?
Probably not, because if I'm going to add something to a project that I'm not fusing to, I'm probably going to add a tearaway.
Yep.
So if I'm putting 2 pieces of something in my hoop at the same time, it's probably going to be a fusible mesh versus a non-fusible mesh. Otherwise, I'm just floating something, and it's generally I'm going to float a tearaway.
Yep. Yep. All right. Sticky cutaway. We talked briefly about this already. This is something that you can use when you have a hard to hoop project and you do need the stable. You need it to stay with the project indefinitely, because whatever it is that you're using could really use it. We don't use this a ton, but there are some
very specific uses for it. Absolutely.
Yep. All right. Medium cutaway.
That's that white stuff that I was talking about. You can use this for projects in the hoop. It's a great stable purpose there. I don't use it for much outside of hoop projects.
Does it have a light adhesive coating? I missed that.
Sometimes they do. You can get them fusible.
Oops.
They sometimes have a fusible, but I just copied the stuff that was on their site. I didn't create that one. I just copy and pasted that one. So anyway, we don't use this one a whole lot anymore, just because most most projects have gone to using a mesh as their start. We used to see this a lot more, like in the zippered bag base or something like that, but even those have gone to...
No, a lot of times you add batting in there now, and that just becomes too thick.
Yep, so they've gone to the mesh instead of the cutaway, so we aren't using this as much as we used to.
Yep. And then we are getting to the end here of stabilizers, main stabilizers. So let's talk about tearaway.
Tearaway's great stuff if you're using it properly. A lot of people like to use this in places they're not really supposed to use it.
Yes, and there's a lot of different varieties: sticky, lightweight, medium, heavyweight, soft, firm.
Which one am I supposed to use?
Right. We don't use a ton of different versions of this. We really just
use sticky and I use heavy.
Yes.
And all of the other ones can go find a new home.
Yep.
That's as far as I'm concerned. So heavyweight tearaway. There are two companies that really do this well. Ours is my favorite.
It is, and it is the thickest.
It is super, super heavy, and I can get this in the hoop. My Grippy grid would probably help me get this in the hoop.
Yeah.
It is super heavy. You're going to need to open up your hoop pretty loose to get this to be hoopable. It is very difficult to hoop. This is generally going to be used as a float.
Or in a magnetic hoop.
Or in a magnetic hoop. So
a dime magnetic hoop.
Yes, dime magnetic hoop. It's not going to be hooped well in a baby lock hoop. Dime magnetic hoop. Yep, flat hoop would be ideal though.
Yes.
But they are definitely not all created equal. So the next heaviest is going to be OESDs. Same thing. You can get that one in the hoop, but it's still going to be better to be used as a float.
Yep.
This is phenomenal for bumping up how much a design can handle in stitch count.
Yes.
So you just tuck that right underneath. So when we say float, if anybody out there is like, I have no idea what they're talking about, that means it's not in the hoop. It's not attached to anything. We just cut it the approximate size of our design and tuck it underneath the hoop. As soon as it starts stitching, your stitch will go in and it'll grab hold of it, and then it starts moving with the hoop. Yep. So the machine has the hoop in there. You just take your tearaway and you tuck it underneath, and then it sits underneath the hoop on the bed of the machine. As soon as it starts stitching, it's now grabbed hold of that, and that is now going to move everywhere with it, and it's going to support what's going on.
Flip that hoop over, you can see that there was a piece that was floating underneath it.
So this is a float. It's not actually attached to, wow, we did this really crappy. Was that the point of this one? Okay, good. Because otherwise we screwed this one up. So this is just floated, and this is not a heavy tearaway. This is a
I think that's like
medium,
the heavyweight,
light,
firm.
Medium-ish feel tearaway. So there's not a lot going on there.
No.
So that is a float. It's just, you have your hoop, the hoop is in the machine, and you just tuck it underneath the hoop and let the machine grab hold of it as it starts to stitch, and then it will move it along with your design.
Yes.
You can tape it if you feel the need to do so, but as soon as it starts stitching, it'll grab hold of it, and then the tape is just a hindrance, actually.
It can get stuck.
Because it can get stuck somewhere and go where it's not supposed to be. So that is tearaway. Heavyweight tearaway is phenomenal, especially if you are doing satin stitch lettering. It will prevent tunneling happening on your project. It is phenomenal to help with that heavy stitch count and keep the project from puckering.
So Marilyn is asking, this is a really good question. If I would like to stitch out the Tula Pink Lion. It is 87,000 stitches on an OESD pillow blank. Would the heavyweight tearaway be correct? So if we were doing Judy's math, we would need 8 layers of stabilizer here.
Right.
So we definitely won't need that much. So we're going to show you a couple of things in just a minute that talks about how to prepare your fabrics, but just off the top of my head, not knowing specifically how big this is, the first thing that I would probably do is make sure that I starch the pillow. I know it's an OESD pillow blank, so I know it's good quality. The second thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add fusible woven to the back of that pillow. I'm going to want that pillow to have more support. It's definitely a good quality pillow blank, but I'm going to add that to the back of that. And then I'm likely going to put a no-show mesh in my hoop with this. So I'm going to hoop no-show mesh with the pillow, and I'm hooping it. I'm not like sticking it to anything. I'm not doing that. I'm actually getting it in the hoop. And then I'm definitely going to put heavyweight tearaway underneath it.
Yep.
Would you do anything different?
I sometimes like to have my pillows have a little bit of batting on them.
That's a great option. Yep.
I might have a layer of batting in there because
makes them softer.
It makes them softer, and it would also add to the support of all of that embroidery. So it would give it a little bit of a poof.
Yep.
And it would also soften the stiffness of that tearaway in there. So maybe even, you know, it doesn't have to be thick. So it doesn't have to be like a crazy amount of loft batting, but just a little bit in there. So I would probably add a little bit of batting in there as well.
Yep, that's a great option. You could prepare the pillow ahead of time by putting a little thin layer of batting in there and like stitch a line.
Could do a basting stitch to keep that in place so that it all stays there.
Yeah.
You know, I know a lot of people like to use like T-pins or something like that. I really don't like to put pins anywhere I'm going to have an embroidery. I don't like that personally.
Yep.
So I would rather do a basting stitch either with you know, my sewing machine or a basting stitch right in the hoop.
Yep.
Which, hey, you know what? There's some of those available.
There are. You get that with the bundle this time.
Yes, there are basting stitches available in your design pack that are coming with the bundles. So.
Yep. So let's see. Heavyweight tearaway, and next we have the OESD Stable Stick tearaway. This is the sticky tearaway that we did talk about a little bit earlier.
We talked about it earlier, which again is in the bundle if you are looking to try some of that out.
Yep.
This is probably my go-to when it comes to a sticky.
Yep, it's a nice sticky.
Yep.
I also like that we talked very briefly about the smaller rolls of this. So they make project rolls. And one of the really nice things about a project roll, if you have a stabilizer that you don't use frequently, you know, the stickies and the fusibles and things like that and washaways, they can kind of change with the temperature.
Yep.
So buying a smaller roll sometimes is really nice because
you don't have to worry about the fusible or the sticky being yuck.
Yeah, too gluey or gooey or whatever that happens.
Or not only that, too, it's not as much of an investment because those are the expensive ones.
Absolutely.
You know, so you don't have the, you know, it's not an $80 roll of stabilizer. Okay, so I'm exaggerating a little bit, but that big roll, the full size roll of sticky wash away is $75.
It's a big.
It's
big
insane.
Chunk. Yeah.
So
So that is this one.
Yep.
And
then that is the tearaways. So there's of course a lot of different weights. Honestly, we don't use them, so that's why I didn't put them in there. So if it's not a heavyweight or it's not a sticky, we don't have them in our stash.
No.
If we're going to add a tearaway, we're adding the heavyweight because it just doesn't do enough to really benefit you.
No.
Or you're going to have to add multiple layers, and then you might as well have the heavyweight anyway.
Right. The thinner stabilizers, you know, in theory, you're like, well, I could just add 2 layers of this to get this. But they're too soft. Like, they don't have enough stiffness to them. And it's the stiffness of that heavyweight tearaway that really prevents the tunneling effect that we're so desperately trying to get rid of.
That's what we're trying to prevent from happening.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
So we do have some in the store. So we, you know, if that's what
we know that some of you guys like it, and you know, we're certainly not snobs about it.
I mean, we kind of are, but we will sell you other stuff. But we like this because it tears away clean. It tears away easily.
Yep. It almost perforates itself. I mean, seriously.
It just really does make a perfect addition to adding stability to anything.
Are we doing?
I think we're going to show all of the things
all of
not
those
to do.
things. Okay.
Yes.
Oh yeah, we do have a page for that.
Yes.
Yes, we do.
All right. So toppers, how to use them, how to get rid of them. Do I really need them?
Yep.
Yep.
All right. So we have a wash away and we have a heat away. This is the heat away. There is a trick to the heat away.
Yeah.
You can't move the iron.
Yep.
That is probably the biggest mistake people make is they iron it instead of press it away. So what is the difference? Is the movement.
Yes.
So what we tend to do is kind of do this.
I think it's because we think it's going to like stick to the iron. Yeah.
So if you had a topper on something that it was a heat away topper, you would take, and you do need to check. A lot of the secondary mistake is that our irons are generally too hot. So we want to make sure that it is not too hot, and we don't want to iron, we want to press. So we're going to literally press, wait, press, wait, pick it up, press. That is how you remove a heat away topper. You do want to have an iron, just like with everything else, that doesn't have a whole lot of holes on the bottom. So just like when we're fusing everything on, it's the same concept as when we're trying to take things off. We want to have a iron that doesn't have oodles of holes underneath. So you need to have a large plate area that doesn't have a lot of holes, because what those holes end up being are cold spots, and you won't get the same heat dispersion from those areas. So it does make a difference what your iron is.
Yep.
You do not want steam, so those are bad. And even if you have a steam iron, we recommend never putting water in your iron. Your iron will last you lifetimes if you don't put water in it. Use a spritzer for your water. Don't put water in your iron.
Like we're talking about like the iron,
the actual iron,
not like a big standing steam iron.
Yeah,
obviously
no.
that one you put.
That one's different,
right?
But like your actual regular iron that you're using in your sewing room, don't put water in it.
Yeah, it will last a lot longer.
You won't end up with a leaky iron, and you won't end up with a rusty iron. You'll end up with an iron that lasts you a really long time.
Yep.
Just use the spray bottle for the water where you need it, and then it will steam and do all of its things like it's supposed to without issues in the iron. You'll end up not needing to buy an iron from us. Why did I just tell them that?
I know.
Stupid me.
Use lots of water. No.
Lots of water. Do that. No, don't do that. Anyway, so heat away topper, very important. Don't have your iron too hot, and don't move the iron while it is being on whatever your project is. If you move it, what will end up happening is you'll get the little plastic balls of topper that don't want to come off, and you'll be very frustrated. Ask me how I know.
Yep.
Yeah, we've all been there.
We've all done it.
We've all done it. So it does remove, it doesn't leave a residue as long as you do it properly.
Yep.
It actually goes away super easily. It's just a matter of doing it right.
Yep.
Imagine that.
And Kimberbell has one, Floriani has one, Baby Lock has one, OESD has one.
Do we really not have one?
I don't think so. So
this is really great for, I actually prefer heat for towels. So, and I mean like terry towels in this instance. The reason that I like the heat topper for towels is because it stays with your project. So if I use a water-soluble topper, as soon as I throw it in the washing machine, it goes away. And I no longer have anything between my towel and my stitches.
Yep.
The heat topper will stay there. It will never disappear. It won't disintegrate.
Right.
It will stay there forever. So through multiple washings, those terry loops are going to work their way up through my stitches if there's no barrier between the two. The heat topper will keep that from happening. So I will continue to have a beautiful embroidery forever if I use that heat topper in there to keep that from happening.
Unfortunately, there is no alternative to that.
There isn't. So sometimes I don't want to use, depending upon my design, if I have like tiny letters, it can be difficult to get the heat topper out of a little circle inside of an O or an E or something like that. So I'll use a water soluble based on the design in trying to get that removed. And sometimes what you're putting in the design doesn't allow you to use a heat topper. If you've got leather in there or something like that that you can't put an iron directly on, you can't use a heat away topper. You've got to use water soluble because it doesn't allow you to heat it. And you do have to have direct heat for it to go away.
So putting a press cloth will not work.
Nope.
So you definitely have to put your iron directly on it.
You have to be able to put your iron directly on it.
So essentially you have a water-soluble topper and you have a heat-away topper. Your water-soluble topper will eventually, it will dissipate. It will wash away from, I thought this picture, how it turned out, was hysterical. So apparently we do have one now. Whoops.
That was the water.
Yep. Oh, we were talking about heat before.
Yeah.
Yes. So, anyways, water soluble will go away.
Yeah, you should have seen me trying to get rid of the
excess. It kind of, it almost looks like a I don't know,
big spool
of something. So you can, you get to pick and choose. It is obviously your project. And if you have had a bad experience with something, a lot of times you don't go back to it. But most of the time, either the iron is
I have an example of what not to do.
Not to do, yeah.
Sorry,
you can
Sandy.
definitely get balls of the stabilizer, and
unfortunately,
they're really hard.
we've all been there.
We have.
I mean, everybody has had their iron too hot or moved the iron, or we've all done it. So those are the keys. Don't move the iron and don't have it too hot.
Yes.
If you get I don't move my iron, but it was too hot, that's been my latest.
Yeah.
I have since, of course, fixed it, but you know, that was my last, you know, I didn't move it, but it's still not going anywhere, and my iron was too hot. So definitely read the instructions on that one. That's, you know, so hard.
So hard.
I don't like instructions.
I know, last resort. So water-soluble topping will wash away. It, again, is designed for you to put over top of your projects. Anything that has some sort of a nap or some place that the stitches can sort of disappear, this is going to be a really good idea.
And helpful.
And even sometimes with tiny lettering, this will help a lot and make your letters pop out, even if it's not on something that would typically sort of shrink in. It can be beneficial. It will not hurt it, I guess, unless the project that you're putting it on can't get wet. So don't do it then. Anything else to add for that?
No, it is great stuff. You know, the other companies, when they do their shtick on this, they'll tell you should put a topper on everything. You don't need to put a topper on everything.
No, I mean,
but it definitely does have a place.
We have the topper, no topper example. It's a good place to show that. So I'll show the one where, like, I disagree, where you don't necessarily have to have it on everything.
So this is just standard cotton. All right. There's like.
You can, maybe I could, the tiny letters.
There's a little bit of difference. So this is like sitting up a little prettier. Same threads. This looks a little bit darker. So it's not sitting up quite as pretty. It's sunken just a hair more into the fabric.
But unless it's really, really little letters.
There's not much difference on a regular cotton.
Right.
All right. That's pretty much the same thing. And then there's this guy. So the difference from here to here
is big.
Is big. So when you have something with loops, there's a very big difference in what you're seeing. So anything with a loft, you know, even sweatshirts that have loft, you're going to see that when you're stitching things. Lettering is a very specific need for that. It tends to be a definite, you should use it when you're putting lettering on there. It just tends to really need it. But there's regular designs that need it too. If you have something that rope, if you're stitching on like a rope bowl or something like that, you definitely want to put that on there. I've done that. You know, even if your design isn't really dense, it doesn't matter. You still want to have, you always want to be stitching on it on a level playing field. If you don't have a level playing field,
you need
give yourself a level playing field. That's what the topper is.
Yep.
And that's when you should be using it.
Yes.
So whether it's the water or the heat will depend upon what you're stitching on.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, Cindy, yes, we did about, you know, an hour ago.
Feels like
it was a little while ago. Okay, so specialty stabilizers, miscellaneous items. We've talked about some of them already, but we're going to cover a couple more.
Yep.
So I didn't put this in there because I didn't have any way to describe that.
Yeah, that's really hard. All right, so Easy Tea. Easy Tea.
I don't know where you put that.
I think it's in the bag.
Okay, this is our favorite stuff. We use this all the time. So you've heard us talking about this a couple of times. This is, again, what we said we would fuse into that pillow backing. We put this on our fabrics before we cut them for backgrounds. We put this on some appliques if we need it for even like a color block or something to that effect. This is the favorite part. I'm going to see if I can get this not to, can you see that? Yeah. Pre-shrunk. Very important. So remember how we were saying about how you could, you know, spritz something to see if you needed to shrink? This is already pre-shrunk. So you don't have to worry about whatever you fuse this to being adjusted later on. This is a great project. The product, excuse me. The fuse on this is very solid. It is very consistent. This is similar to what you would look at as being your SF, what, 101?
Shape Flex or the Kimberbell.
Only in what it looks like, not in the way that it behaves. This is premium product compared to not at all good premium product at all. So head and shoulders above your Shape Flex in your SF-101 by far. So this is not by any stretch seconds. This is pre-shrunk. That is not. So very, very big difference. These are not equal by any stretch of the imagination.
No, the fusible, it's so even. It fuses so nice. And it just makes such a difference in the overall quality of outcome of your project.
Yes.
We spend a lot of time talking about preparing your fabrics. So I have some samples here that we're going to show you of how it changes when you have your fabric prepared. So this is just a little piece on the back here. It's white because it already has the Easy Tee on the back of it. So you can see it's nice, it's fused well, no bubbles. It fuses really nice.
Very, very even bond everywhere. There's no bubbles anywhere. And it fuses super fast.
Right, it is so fast. So this is the same word, right? The same size lettering. This one here has just tearaway on the back with my Easy Tee. This one does not have any Easy Tee on it, and the fabric hasn't been prepared, and there's nothing on top of this. So I'm going to be brave on live TV here, and we're going to spritz our projects with water to see how, or actually I'm going to use my best press here, to see how they behave. Can you see this? It is just pulling in drastically, and this one is going to stay pretty flat. So
I don't know if you guys can see, this is literally puckering on all of the sides there.
So it just lifted and came away, and the fabric started to pull in, and this has got the Shape Flex, not Shape Flex, the Shape Flex alternative, the Easy Tee on it on the back of it. So it's still very, very, very flat. My design is super duper flat. This design is not.
It's now puckering. You can see it because of the chevron.
Yeah.
It is puckered all crazy right on that
But
design.
it actually looked pretty good before I hit it with water. And so again, your project is going to, you're going to tear away your stabilizer. You're going to
it's going to look great, and then you're going to wash it, and you're going to say, what on
earth just happened? So, you know, when we tear this away, we can kind of see that, again, look at it, it really does not want to, again, the fabric wants to pull in, so it doesn't want to lay flat. And if I tear this away from the back of here, it isn't going to matter. So you can see it's super duper flat still on the back, and this is definitely not sitting flat. It's probably easier to see. Yeah, you can see it pulling up and drawing in when it's upside down versus my nice super flat piece here. So again, we didn't prepare this fabric at all. I literally just put it in the hoop, put some tearaway on there, and stitched it out. And it actually didn't look too bad until I got it wet, which again,
it's going to get wet because you're going to wash it, right? I mean,
and a ton of the stuff that you buy from the stores.
That's
it's like
what it looks
everybody
like.
uses just this tearaway, and it looks really good on the rack, and then you take it home and you wash it, and when you wash it, your tearaway stabilizer starts to come out, and it kind of looks all funky on the back, and it might look like this.
So you guys are all going to go to the stores now, and you're going to start looking on the insides of everything. You're going to be like, what did they use?
Right. So I mean, a lot of times they will either use this or they will use the standard cutaway, but a lot of people use this.
They do.
And so again, I'm nice and flat. I don't have any excess pull that's happening around my letters here, and I did just use a tearaway with my letters.
I mean, nothing is happening. It's just...
Yeah, because my project has been...
It's already stabilized.
It's already stabilized. My fabric was starched, so it has a little bit more body to it, and that starching helps to pre-shrink that. And now we have some cutaway. Again, this is just cutaway with nothing on the back of it. The fabric hasn't been prepared. And ironically, the tearaway one actually stitched out better. Do you guys want to laugh? So I put a Q in as my A. So it's cutaway. But it didn't stitch out as nice with the cutaway as it did on the tearaway, which is kind of just a funny little thing. But this one is absolutely super duper flat. So again, if we take it to our washing machine and we get it wet, we can see how differently
you can see it coming in off the white.
React, and it doesn't really look nice. You can see that it's pulled up. It's really wrinkly. It's really changing the way that it looks. This is still remaining
100%
nice,
flat.
super flat. It's
and
super
this
flat.
Isn't even a fusible. This is only fused by the EZT.
Right.
This is what that will do for you. So we talked about this at the very beginning. Starch and prepping your fabrics. So all the difference in the world, guys.
Yeah, it really does. You will be able to use a significant amount of less stabilizer if you are preparing your fabrics and you're adding some fusible woven to unstable fabrics. This is not what I would use for a t-shirt or something like that, but we're talking about crafty projects, quilts, wall hangings, tote bags, things that you might want to be embellishing.
So, the background fabrics for all the stuff like what's behind us.
Kimberbell.
This will enable those fabrics to be able to absorb a lot more stitches than just throwing the fabric in the hoop over the batting by itself.
So it just really does make a big difference in the overall quality of your design. I don't know how well this will show on the camera. So this is a camper block. The back of this is, there is so many thread jumps and things like that. So the colors are different, but it is exactly the same block. So this was completely done with a wash away stabilizer, and then I had a lightweight tearaway underneath here. The difference between the two blocks is that this one does have a woven on the back, so it's got EZT on the back of this. So on the front of this, they are very, they look pretty flat. If you were to look really closely at this, you would see that there's definitely some pulling and some areas over here. You'll be able to see that a little bit better on the back. When I turn
the same design?
The same design, yep.
The fabric line. Very different.
Yes. Yep. So when I flip this over, this one has the woven on the back of it, and you can see when I rinsed everything out that I did get a little bit of sort of crinkle in the corner here, but I didn't get near as much as I got over here. So it's really drawn in along the outside edges. This is so much easier to see in person.
It
is. But and again, the difference is that this one here has a woven
on it.
interfacing that was fused down to this before I actually stitched it out. They don't look a tremendous amount different on the front unless you really start critiquing the blocks. Then, you know, for people who come in tomorrow, you'll be able to take apart my blocks. And you'll be able to see there's a little bit more wrinkles that happen around the flowers and things like that. So it really does make a big difference when you add a little bit of stability to it. And the thing is that so I'm a quilter, so I've added another layer on here, but I haven't added so much more that it's going to add a tremendous amount of bulk to my seam. I'm still going to be able to press this, piece it. It's still going to be soft and pliable. It doesn't stiffen up my fabric. It's not going to make it so that the quilt is not cuddly when you're finished with it, but it really is going to make a big difference in the overall outcome of your project. You will be much more successful.
Yep, absolutely. So EZT is fantastic. It is definitely designed, it says right on there, transform your t-shirts into quilts. So, you know, I mean, it had a purpose when they came. So if you are looking for something for that, that is where that's coming from as well. She's wondering where your design came from.
This is from Lunchbox Quilts. It is they have a camper design.
I was just going to say that, you know, when you cut a t-shirt, we've all cut a t-shirt at some point in our life, whether we were cutting the sleeves off or whatever, to make a t-shirt quilt. You know, that knit, it just rolls whenever you cut knit. This would prevent that from happening. So you would fuse this on the t-shirt and then cut it, and then you have flat pieces to put into a quilt. So if you have that mental picture, sometimes that helps your brain to process what it does. And it's just beautiful stuff.
Yes, absolutely. So. And it comes in a large chunk, which
60
is like
by
60
72,
by 72,
or a 14-inch roll. Couple different ways.
It's not it's not really a roll.
No, it's not a roll. It's a fold.
It's folded. It's in a package, but it's only 14 inches tall.
Yep.
I think we said that
kind
last
of
time.
Like I say roll because that's the way my brain works.
Yeah, it's
my bad.
more like stabilizer size.
Yes, it's more equivalent like how we're used to cutting out stabilizer.
Exactly.
But yes, you can get it in 2 different sizes. So, okay. So that is EZT. We are also very, very frequent users of batting. So this is our favorite batting. We certainly also carry some other types. We have Kimberbell batting here in the store, which is called their project batting. We also do generally have Floriani's batting, and we do still have that in stock as well. That is called embroidery batting. They're very similar in weight. Those are blends as well. This is an 80-20. This is by Quilter's Dream. Really like it. It is really easy to use. This is the craft size. This is what is in the bundle, and wonderful quality. It has a really nice hand. I love the packaging on here. It tells you how you should quilt if you're using it for a quilting perspective. It tells you all of that information.
Yep. And just the blend.
I didn't change that.
Yeah,
my bad.
Is 70-30. The one
I was at home. I didn't have that.
The one we picked for you this year is 80-20. There really is not any difference when you physically are feeling them. You will not feel any difference. The main thing that is different is that the 80-20 is actually white, and the 70-30 one is a cream color. That is really the only thing that is different. I use them interchangeably, and I have used them in the same project. I don't feel any difference, and I wouldn't hesitate to sort of mix and match this version with that. But this is a product that is made in the United States. You know, there aren't a ton of things that are actually made in the United States these days, but the company is in Virginia. They're fantastic. The batting is by far my favorite batting. They have all kinds of different versions of batting, but I can't say enough good things about them. I have never been dissatisfied with any of the products that I have used from them.
I love all of their stuff as well.
And like you were saying, it's really nice when you have a project that tells you, like this tells you, you can stitch up to 8 inches apart with this without the batting actually falling apart on you. So that is a really nice option,
piece of
especially
information
for
to know.
like if we're quilting in our hoops or we're embroiderers or something like that. It's super important to be able to know that.
Yep. Absolutely.
So Sandra is asking a question. Can you purchase additional stabilizer and get a show discount? So we did bundles this year. So yes and no. We have the big bundle, and then we have additional little bundles that you can purchase that are discounted. So we really, really love this batting. This works fantastic if you are doing like a Kimberbell project. We do a ton of Kimberbell projects here.
We do.
And I would say the main thing that's different between this and the Kimberbell is that this is actually, it's a little bit more affordable.
It is.
We all only have so many pennies to spend.
Yep.
And you do
so
get a
this
little
is
bit more bang.
a 46 by 36 inch piece, and it's only $10
right.
To buy this individual piece. So the, yeah. And like we said before, you know, we are purchasers just like you guys, so we like to save pennies where we can save pennies too. So
yeah, if we can get a good product that is a little bit better,
going to be more affordable, we're going to certainly offer it to you guys.
Absolutely.
Yep. So really good stuff, and that is in the bundle. So. All right, Fuse and Seal is a really cool thing. You can use this for like patches and those kinds of things. And we are lucky enough to have a couple different options for these kinds of things now. So for a while we didn't have very many things. So Fuse and Seal is really easy to use. It's an iron-on permanent bond that is a clear piece. And if you've pre-stitched something, you can put those on pretty much anything. It's going to be a heat-activated bond, and of course will withstand repeated washings. Floriani also has a product similar to this called Press and Bond, and the Laboo brand would be called Patch Attach, which it gives away in the name kind of how that works. Another product which is similar in type, but is a little bit different on the market. It is called Hot Fix. We did this in a scan and cut.
We did a scan and cut class, yeah.
When we first were introduced to this. You can stitch through this, which the other stuff you wouldn't use on your machine at all. The press,
Fuse and Seal.
the Fuse and Seal.
Yeah.
You could use this in the machine if you wanted to. So you can stitch over this if you would like to, but you don't have to. This is considered a permanent bond. This is a piece that was cut on the scan and cut and then adhered to this piece of wood, so you can see how that works. So it is like a patch attach if that is how you would like it to be used, but you can also use that as something that you just decorate over top of with sewing, which is a nice add-on option to be able to stitch on top of it and not have it gum up your needle, which is a kind of a cool thing. So we did this with a scan and cut class where we just cut different pieces and then permanently bonded them on. We did a tote bag. So this is some pretty cool stuff. We just kind of gave you a sample option of this. There's, I think, a yard. You got a yard piece
so you can
in your bundle, so you can give that stuff a try. So that is the Hot Fix.
Yes, lots and lots of fun. All right, so we also have our design bundle. This is super exciting.
I left them. They're right next to my computer.
Oh, I see them.
So in the design bundle, this is going to be a direct download. If you purchase one of the stabilizer bundles, you will get a download of the designs. So there are mug rug blanks, small pillow blanks, which those are going to be in a 6x10 hoop size or 7x12. Either one would be workable. And there's basting boxes, there's patch blanks, there's background quilting designs, there are batting blanks, which those would be like if you have an IQ or a design center, you would basically have squaring stitches to put your batting down, and then you can dump whatever.
Or maybe you have an edge-to-edge quilting design from someone else.
And you just want to have something to tack down your batting, and then you can dump those quilting designs on there. You can do that. That is what are in what are? Some good English right there.
Right.
Those are the designs that are in there. So these are just some sample stitch outs of what the mug rug and pillow designs are. So you get a blank, which I didn't test stitch, where this is just a solid piece of fabric. And this is the single flying geese, and then there's a multiple that are going this direction, and then there's just a simple folded fabric. This is, again, available in either the mug rug size or in the kind of the bench buddy size pillow. So you get the mug rug front, and then how these work is that you would load the front piece in that you like, and then you would load in your design. So whatever you want to decorate, you know, so
if you want to decorate.
If you wanted to decorate, you of course don't have to. So for instance, if I were doing this, I would load in this design, and then I would load in my L, and I would place that into position where I wanted that to go. And then I would load in the back, which is also, of course, in the bundle. And then I would hit embroider. And then everything is in order. So I don't have to jump around the design to add in a specifically designed mug rug. So basically what that means is you have the ability to personalize mug rugs with some specialty decorative edges, and you have unending options of what you want those to look like.
Yep.
So there is, again, a plain one where it's just one single piece of fabric over here instead of doing the multiple pieces of fabric, or you can have much heavier decorative. You can add quilting designs to that if you wanted before you put down your decorative design. And then all you have to do is add the back end that matches. So they're labeled 1, 2, 3, 4. You add the back that matches after you've added in your design, and that's how that works. The pillow works the same way. And that is the mug rugs and the pillows and how those work. And then the quilting background quilting has different designs, different sizes. And then again, the basting boxes are exactly what they sound like. The patch works a lot like this. So there's circles, hearts, stars, square, I think hexagon, something like that. And there's a front. So basically you get your fabric and whatnot in place, and then you can add your design, whatever you want your patch to be made out of. And then there's a back piece that you can add backing if you would like, and then the satin stitch that would do the outside edging.
Yes.
So all of that is in there. So basically it's a bunch of blanks that you can make whatever designs.
Yeah, we wanted you to be able to use designs that maybe you already had in your machine or that you've purchased from someplace else, and we didn't want you to have to just sort of, you know,
jump
sometimes
around.
It's confusing to jump and forward and backwards in your machine.
So no jumping necessary.
And this would allow you to actually sort of piecemeal and customize to your heart's extent.
Absolutely.
And a little earlier, someone asked us, what is the CS2 file?
C2S
File. So
it stands for cut to stitch is what that is. C2S stands for cut to stitch. And that is actually the dime working file.
Yes.
So those are available in the Embroidery Tool Shed, which is a free download. And that is a really cool thing because being a free download, it allows you to resize. So you can take those designs in there. All of the C2S files that were available are in there. So we provided those for all of you. So you can go to that site, download Embroidery Tool Shed, because I did not get that in there. Maybe we can put that somewhere. We can get that up on our site somewhere easier to do too. But you can download Embroidery Tool Shed and you can resize and recalculate stitches. It's completely free. So you can basically take any of those designs and things that are in there and play with it and make it whatever size you want.
Yes. And so that specific file extension will only be viewable in that. And like she said, Toolshed is a completely free program. If you already have some dime software, you've already got Toolshed loaded into your computer. But it is really nice, especially for like the basting boxes and those quilting things. You know, if you want that to be maybe fit more proportionately into
whatever hoop it is that you need,
hoop for your machine.
You know, we only did a limited number of
can,
sizes. You can make it into whatever you would like,
or make it smaller to fit around your
all
project.
you would have to do is go to the File button and go to Save As and file and save it in whatever extension it is that you need.
Yep. And it will save into most brands.
Yep.
So you should not have a problem with that.
So those are the design bundle aspects. And we didn't really talk about these. Did we need to?
I think we're going to. I think we're going to talk about some tips, and then we're going to talk about some specialty stuff. So
all right.
I know there's still a lot of you that are hanging around, so we're almost through the meat and potato part of our event here. A couple of tips that we wanted to share with you.
Always do a test sew.
Yes.
Otherwise,
you will fall into the category of, I wish I did a test sew.
That's a thing.
It is.
It's most definitely a thing.
It is super important to know how your project is going to react to whatever it is that you're doing.
Yep.
And sometimes the only way you really know is to test it out.
You betcha. So, you know, it's hopefully whoever you got the design from did all of that stuff out before they put it up. But you don't know what they tested it with. You know, are you using what fabrics and all of those different things? So you always want to make sure that you are going to get the results that you want before you put in that special fabric and that special, I only have so much of this, whatever it is.
Yes.
So be careful and make sure that you're always testing out your designs before you actually jump in.
Yeah.
All right.
And we talked a little bit about this. Make sure that you know how your stabilizer is going to react. If it's a new stabilizer and you have never used it before, you should double check to make sure it's not going to shrink. However it is that you're going to be handling this and your project later, make sure that it is going to work effectively for you.
Yep.
That is super duper important. You know, different no-show meshes react differently to heat.
They sure do.
And they act differently to water. And, you know, fusibles fuse differently to different temperatures. So it's definitely important to double check that. And we can't, unfortunately, we can't tell you how everything is going to react for all of the different things because the variables are very, they're wild. So that will change a lot. So the other thing is you want to make sure that you are keeping your embroidery bobbins and your sewing bobbins separately. They are typically a different weight, so it's definitely important to make sure that you are paying attention to that. If you are a brother or a baby lock person, we have special bobbin thread that they definitely recommend that you use, and most embroidery machines, even if they are not brother and baby lock, do have they do recommend a lot of times, or maybe a special bobbin case, or you thread something a little bit differently. So you definitely want to pay attention to your bobbin when you are doing embroidery versus sewing. They are typically
not going to be the same.
Yes, not going to be the same. And then we've talked about this heavily now. Starch your fabric before hooping your fabric. This will help prevent the fabric from being stretched. We're going to show an example of that in just a second, and then this one too.
Yep. Resist that urge to pull on the fabric to make sure that it looks pretty in the hoop.
Yes, yes.
You are actually much better off having a small wrinkle in the hoop than you are pulling to get it out of the hoop.
Exactly.
You don't want to distort the grain of that fabric.
You do not.
You are going to be very, very sad if you actually do that. So this is an example of that.
This is an example of sort of all of the things that we...
Everything to try not to do.
To try not to do.
And that being said, it'll probably come out perfect, right? Because that's just the way things go, because we just can't seem to screw up, even if you try.
Sometimes. So when you look at this in the hoop, it actually looks pretty flat. But this fabric was hooped and then no stabilizer was hooped. We literally just put something underneath it and we floated it. So when we take this out of the hoop, if we have done this incorrectly, there we go. It is actually doing what it's supposed to. So now
you can see it kind of poofs, maybe you can see.
Yeah.
So there is a ripple all the way around that heart. It just pulls that right in. There's a big bump all the way around the heart, and you can see everything where that hoop was, but there's actually, can you see it?
I think you can kind of see a little
see
bit, right?
There's a ripple literally all the way around the project because, one, there was no stabilizer, and two, she tugged a little bit when she put that in there. So when you put that in, if you pull, what you're doing is you're pulling that out so that as soon as it happens when you take it off, it's going to pop back in to its original position. And so you're actually creating a pucker,
like a reverse
wrinkle. It's going to happen as soon as it comes out of the hoop. So if you do this, you can't see it while it's happening, but you are putting a permanent pucker into that project without even knowing it because you can't see it. And so it's there before you've even started.
Yeah, you've distorted the fabric. So you put it in and you've stretched it.
Yep.
And I always like to use the example of, like, you buy a pair of pants and you try them on and everything is great. And then you wash your pants.
Oh God, I hate this.
And the seam is now like in the wrong place.
It's like twisted.
So they don't feel comfortable. It doesn't go exactly where it needs to be.
You know that you did that little dance trying to make it more comfortable, and you jump in and you're moving, and you're like, this just doesn't feel right anymore.
It's because when fabric is not, when it goes back to its like natural state. So that originally pair of pants was.
Whenever that person put it onto the machine, they twisted it to make it fit.
Yep.
And it now went back to that twist after it was washed.
And it went back to its natural state of grain. And when we pull on our fabrics, we are stretching and we are distorting the grain of the fabric. And so when we take that out of that, it will naturally release. And it will be even worse when it's washed because, again, it's all going to go back
to the natural shape.
To its natural shape, yeah. So
that is a great question, Shannon. I think we should totally.
Do you want to see where do you go to purchase your fabric and design bundle? That is a great place. So let's share my screen. Let's see if I can make this work. So present, share my screen. And I'm going to do my entire screen. It's going to look really weird.
It's going to look really messy. Just bear with. You have to click on it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Right?
So.
Oh, I got to type.
Oh, you don't have a link?
I have a link to the that's obviously not what we wanted. RV.
Here it goes.
There we go.
So, all right. So Laboo Sewing Center, that's us.
Yep.
It's laboosewingcenter.com. And if you scroll down just a little bit, the very first item that comes up on our home screen is all of the bag bundle options for today. So the first one is the Join the Club, I Want Everything. That's the big guy. And that is $225. There's a slightly smaller bundle that's the Quilter Crafter. It lists everything that's going to be in that bundle. The Embellisher in the Hoop Crafter is a little bit bigger. It's going to have a few more items. They're actually just a little bit more expensive items, is why that's more in there. And then the specialties are all of those little bit different items that we're not using every day. And those are the different bundles that are available. Price points are on there, and those are discountable. For all of you who are already in the club, you do have a coupon that you can use off if you look in your bag club email.
Yes.
So
if you were already part of the bag program before, if you purchase the Quilter Crafter, the specialty, or the Embellisher, you have a special coupon code that you can get a slightly more discounted price than this. If you want the big bundle, everybody pays the same for the big bundle, but this is how you become part of the
bag club.
Our Stabilizer Club. This is how you get in. It's the one time of year when you can get in, and there is a limited supply of those. It does not stay sold out, so they are still available. But this is where you would find that, right on our home screen of our webpage. If you just scroll down a little bit more, you will find that, and then a variety of other things. And then when you purchase that bundle, you will automatically get the designs. They will pop into there. So let's go back to here. Okay, so we are back. That was not too painful.
No, that wasn't bad at all. So great question. You'd think we'd ask her to ask that question or something.
Right.
But, you know, good job.
So
what not to do?
Don't
pull on your fabric. Make sure you use stabilizer in the hoop.
In the hoop. It is super important.
Very, very good.
Yes.
To do that. All right.
There we go.
Also in...
Yeah, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, let's talk about this for just a second. Did we open one of these?
That one is open.
Oh, don't mind me.
I won't mind you.
So also in the join bundle, we have this kind of sneak peek at like everything piece. So this is actually really nice. This is nicer than I thought it was when we ordered them. I was like really pleased with this. So this is, inside this, you will find a stabilizer for every fabric, and that's actually true. So what this is there's a sample that you can use, and there is a description piece as well, and it has a full-size sample that you can put a 4x4 hoop in, and it has a label on each piece of that. And then there is a piece that you can keep that has a label, and it's got a little ring you could put a string or something like that through, and then you can keep that so that you know what kind is what. So this is also a great tool to have for, you know, remembering what it feels like. So when you run out or whatnot, you can be like, okay, what kind do I need? You can even put sticky notes or something and write on those
more on there.
If you wanted to. So this is a really, really great tool. It shows you what it is because there's a sticker on there, and it's got a ring on the top there so you can keep those. Plus there is, like I said, a usable piece in there for the entire hoop size that you need. So it isn't a big hoop, but it does give you a test piece. I'm not even going to
I was going to say that's okay.
So that is a really great thing. And again, that is in our join bundle that you get that test piece out.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to show that that was in there because I think that's a really, I love that it has that sample size that you can keep forever and
add notes and you
put
can
notes
even
and
add
everything
more
on.
to
You
that.
can add more to that if you wanted to from other companies, miscellaneous things if you wanted to as well.
Right.
So we had this previously. I thought it was still really helpful. It is color coded. I don't know if you saw that even on that. It had the color-coded sections on there. So everybody color codes theirs. Unfortunately, everybody doesn't color code theirs the same.
It's so much easier.
So it's very confusing because it's not all the same. But there are codes there. I wish everybody was the same, but that's unfortunately not a thing. So the picture there shows baby locks. But we do have everybody else's kind of coding on there as well. So basically, it's just supposed to be a system that helps you know what one is what just by looking. So it's a big umbrella, so it's not like each different type has a different color. So all tearaways are purple or blue or whatever it happens to be, so on and so forth. So everybody who purchases the Join the Club or I Want It All / bundle will receive that that kit that I just showed.
Yeah, if you are a current member, the only thing that you wouldn't get if you purchased a new bundle would be the bag. Yeah.
So, but they are not. They're not given to everybody or any, just for being here today or anything like that. I'm sorry.
Yes.
So, okay. So we talked about a lot of these during the day today, but let's just cover a couple things just in case. We talked about wrinkles and ripples quite a bit. So ways. Don't pull on the fabrics. Make sure that your hoop is tensioned properly. We're going to talk about that in a minute.
Skip stitches.
Starching, all of those things are going to help with that. Hooping tricky items. We've kind of talked about with the different things, and we're going to talk about hooping again in a little bit. The one thing that we have not talked about is your bobbin showing. So one thing to make sure is one, make sure that you're using the right bobbin, which we did talk about a little bit. But sometimes that just comes out of the tension. We get that phone call a lot, and it doesn't actually have anything to do with anything.
Right.
It just slips out. Basting boxes, which if you buy a kit, you're going to get basting boxes. Or maybe your machine already has those, and it doesn't pick up the thread really well. It's really, really common when you're doing large stitches in the embroidery hoop for your bobbin thread to slip out of tension.
Yep.
It's just super common. There's nothing wrong with your machine or anything else. It just happens, and it happens across the board.
Yep.
So nothing's wrong. You'll get holes in your stabilizer showing you where to put something. That's really, a lot of the times, if it's just the stabilizer. If you're actually trying to baste through fabric, it usually catches it just fine. Fonts gone bad. Tearaway, that heavy tearaway generally will fix that.
Yeah, unless that's the only thing that you're using.
Yep.
But also, this will be delving way past stabilizers. Some fonts are just not good. If they're not, if they weren't not originally an embroidery design, and you're using like a true type font, sometimes that can really make things go bad.
So that's kind of falls into the just because you can does not mean you should. Things. So if you are a software guru and you're like, oh, I have it, it showed up in the list, I'm going to stitch it, and it doesn't stitch out well, that doesn't mean you should have stitched it just because it shows up in the system.
Yes.
This bag of stabilizers is different from last year's bag. There are some that are the same. There are not 100% the same. There are some new things. There's some things that were in there last year.
Yeah, we tried to do like the base as the same because there's basic stabilizers that we use that are pretty consistent across the board. And we're always using EZT, we're always using some sort of no-show mesh, we're always using batting. So there's always going to be something that stays the same.
Yep.
But we do try to
shake it up a little bit,
just in case. We don't want you to just be a collector of our kits, and hopefully that it allows you to try some new and different things. So each year we have done this. We do change the stabilizer bundle, that the buy-in bundle essentially does get changed a little bit, and this year is no exception. This is the first year that we've done some smaller bundles for maybe people who are, maybe you're not interested in being part of our club, and that's okay. Or maybe you are already part of our club and you just want to sort of
needed a little bit of a refill of some things. So that's why we broke it apart in the types of things. So if you're, more of a quilter and you don't do the embellishing, those kinds of things, that kind of narrows things down. So we split things apart in that way. So that's how we kind of did the bundles, the smaller bundles, in hopes that would help narrow things down a little bit, but still gave a really great value on those individual bundles as well.
Absolutely.
So we absolutely have sticky wash away. They are just not included in the bundle this year, but you can certainly buy that separately. And if you have bought a machine from us, you do have a regular coupon code that you could use for a discount. If you have not, we can help you with that.
Yes.
So, Stabilizer Club, we told you we would give you some examples. This
formerly
is
known
the
as the Bag Lady Club.
This is the only time that you can buy into this club. So we generally about 2 months from now, we have somebody that goes, hey, I want to get in the club. And unfortunately, this is the only time. So if you would like to join, this is it. This is the only time.
Yeah.
This is, let's see, we talked about 40%. Fabric, needles, notions, stabilizer, thread, brother, baby lock, accessories, class punch cards. We didn't say that one earlier. Kimberbell patterns, we talked about that. The fill your bag, I like that one.
Yeah.
Anything that can fit in your bag.
Yeah, and for the virtual people, I mean, we're pretty generous.
Yeah, basically fill your cart with whatever you want.
Yeah.
So as long as it was within the things that we put in.
Yeah, there are some things that you
if it was in your page, you could fill it up.
Yeah.
So like I said, they're good sales, and 30 to 40% is pretty much the normal percentage off. You know, there's not generally, it's not a 10 or a 20% thing. We definitely make it worth your time.
Yes.
So the pencils are in the kit. Yes, absolutely. All right. it is an exclusive club. You can only join now. It's forever. So once you join, you're in. You don't have to re-up next year. You get a great deal on our favorites.
You can be part of the cool kids club.
Absolutely. I like that when I left it because I thought you might. You get that nifty bag.
Yes.
And great reason is, of course, the special savings that are available every month in store or online.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So hooping.
Yes.
Go for it.
So there are a lot of things that people don't realize that happen when they hoop their fabrics. I have seen this on the Kimberbell website so many times in the last month that it's absolutely crazy. So if you are looking at your actual hoop, so I'm going to show you a live picture here. So your hoop. All right. And yes, this is a Brother or a Baby Lock branded item, but I promise you they're all the same. Your hoop has a little dimension to it. There's almost always some sort of flat piece or some indication that the hoop has a right side and a wrong side. Every brand that I've ever worked with has had some markings on the front of the hoop. So this one's got little notches on it, on the things. It also has an arrow. Let's see if you can see that arrow. Ooh, it's there. It's really hard to see, but there is a little arrow there. There is also a matching arrow to the top of your hoop. So when you are hooping your projects, so no matter how well you stabilize it, if you mess it up when you get it in your hoop, you still will not be successful. So my trick is, if I don't have to be perfect in placement, so the fabric goes like so, and then I like to put it in my hoop. And what I like to do is I like to make it kind of loosey-goosey when I put it in the first time. And then once I have it in the hoop, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of tighten the screw at the bottom.
I want all bundles are sold out.
Okay. Awesome.
You know.
All right.
Maybe we should up then.
Let's up that.
So the I Want It All bundles have just sold out.
So 10 more. 10 more. Yep.
We'll figure it out.
Yes. All right. So I have pre-tightened this screw, and then I'm going to place this back in. And when I do that, so there's not a lot of stabilizer on here, but what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to avoid the little bubbles that happen, because I know you all are just like me. You see that bubble
and you want to pull.
Your first instinct is to do this, because I don't want that to be there, because it makes me absolutely crazy. But when you do that, you are actually distorting the grain of the fabric. And so that is why when we took this out, everything sort of went
and sucked right in there.
And sucked it right in there. So if you put it in loosey-goosey and then you tighten this, and you don't want to crank it down right now. If you get it so that it's relatively taut, then when you pop your hoop back off and you go to re-hoop your fabric, it will go in pretty tight, but it won't be so tight that you can't get anything, that you can't get in. I can still get it in, and you can see it kind of just tightens itself all the way up there. So that's a really good way of making sure that you're not pulling on your fabrics and distorting them. Yep. So
pre-tensioning
your hoop. And then you definitely want to make sure that you have your little arrows sort of kissing each other at the top, and that your hoop looks like this. There should be an indentation around the outside edge of this. If your hoop looks like this, you have put it in wrong.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Absolutely do not do that. It is absolutely wrong. So you definitely want to make sure that the hoop is sitting inside. So if you've ever done like standard, hand embroidery in a hoop?
Yep.
It's backwards. The fabric comes over the top of that hoop. It doesn't sit in underneath. This looks backwards in comparison to what that looks like. This is what it looks like when you're doing that. This is what it's going to look like when you're doing this by machine embroidery. So it really does make a huge difference in how you do that. So make sure that you're pre-tensioning that screw. That's going to give you your best results. It's also going to help you prevent this. Any any more tips on that?
If you start smacking your hands when you pull them with a ruler or something, you'll stop doing that too.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
we could come over and do that.
We could totally do that. I'm just kidding. But seriously, that is just don't.
Yeah, resist
whatever.
the urge.
Don't do that.
If it doesn't go in perfect, take it back out and redo it.
Yep. You know, sometimes when I'll get one side in, and then I'll pet it.
Yeah, pet it.
And hold in, you know, because if you got one that's just not doing what you want it to do,
right?
I'll hold one end in and smooth while I'm pushing in the other side, because it sometimes doesn't want to play nice.
Yep.
But
that is definitely super
doing what it should be
important.
doing.
Yes,
All right.
Absolutely.
What else we got?
All right. So let's hoop our fabric correctly.
Oh,
you okay over there, Kathy? Okay.
Okay, good. All right. So this is just our recipes.
Yes.
So we've kind of talked about these a little bit as we have been going through the different stabilizers, but there's a few things that we haven't talked about.
Yep.
The first one we absolutely talked about, freestanding lace, 1 layer of dissolve away mesh, and 1 layer of Badge Master. So
that is our secret sauce.
That is the secret sauce. And the only other thing that I've written on there is if you are using applique, you're going to want to switch which one goes on top.
Yep.
So.
And if you're like me and you have the need to put more than you think you should put in your hoop, you're going to need to add a little bit more, like a 3rd layer. Like I will sandwich
and that's okay.
my 2 pieces of Badge Master in between another layer so that I can put 47 bookmarks in there.
One of the questions that I've been asked is, you know, is there such a thing as too much stabilization? And the honest answer to that is most of the time, no. The only time that you really can run into like way too much is if you have something that's going to end in the product being too heavy. So if that's going to matter, so a shirt that's going to be a bulletproof because I've added so much,
right?
A quilt that's going to weigh 20 pounds because of all of those. So those kinds of things, when you're looking at it, you're like, okay, I need to pay attention to the weight. That is, yes, you can overstabilize.
Yes.
Outside of that, if it's just a wall hanging, nope. Add in whatever you need to add in to make it stitch the way that you want, because it doesn't matter how heavy it is. Make it so that it stitches beautiful.
Yep.
That's the key.
Yep.
Err on the size of a piece too much than a piece too little.
Yep.
That being said, if you're in the middle of a stitch out and it's not looking like you want, stop the machine and add more. Add another piece underneath.
Yes.
Don't keep going.
No.
Stop
Don't
and
ruin
add
the whole thing.
Don't, stop and add another piece of stabilizer, because it will actually balance itself a lot if you can stop the tunneling or the puckering or whatever it is.
Yes.
You won't notice the oops area as much as if it's stopped.
Yeah, and these little cards here, if you do buy the bundle, they're getting these recipe cards, right?
I didn't do that, but I can fix that.
You're going to get the recipe cards. So we're
like
going
I
to
said,
add that.
It was 1 o'clock in the morning.
It was 1 o'clock in the morning. So anybody who buys the bundle,
we'll fix that.
We'll email you a copy of our recipe cards. So you will have this part, and you can print those off and then refer to them later or add your own.
We've got these nicer.
We have, them an actual looking like a recipe card
look that has all of this information.
Yes,
so,
yes, absolutely.
I knew there was something I forgot. Come on.
So if you get another email that says, here's the things that you were missing, then that's what it is. So we talked about freestanding lace. We talked about clothing embellishment.
Yep,
we talked about knit, and we kind of talked about non-knit because you showed your jean jacket. Pillowcase bands are kind of like non-knit. So you're kind of going to treat it the same. It's basically, whenever I do pillowcase bands, it's basically some sort of cotton woven, unless I'm doing satin or something like that. So again, we can't stress enough making sure that you interface that, and you interface that with that fusible Easy Tee. That's going to give you a lot of support, and it's going to make it so much easier to absolutely embroider. And we're gonna skim through these things, and then we're just going to show a bunch of samples. Yep. And
did we? I'll read through these to see if we missed anything.
Quilt squares in the hoop, quilt blocks, quilting, a quilt in the hoop, and wall hanging. So quilting a quilt in the hoop is really probably one of the only times that I never really use stabilizer at all. I literally just hoop my entire quilt and then stitch through that. So that's probably the only time that I use absolutely
Agreed.
nothing. If I absolutely needed some sort of stabilizer in there, I would likely pick water-soluble or Badge Master just because they wash away super quick and relatively easy. Again, making sure that whatever it is that I'm working on can actually be washed. Wall hangings are going to be treated very similar to like the pillowcase bands. We're going to bass press those, same with the quilt blocks. We're gonna add that woven interfacing, so we're adding our EZT, and then we're gonna either add some water soluble or we're gonna add a heavyweight tearaway underneath it. We might add some fusible
batting
like
of some sort.
Yep, some sort of you know, fusible batting instead of our woven interfacing. One or the other. Again, we're not doing
two different types of fusibles.
Right. We might add some batting, so like I might use some woven interfacing and then you know, hoop some stabilizer, not stabilizer, some batting underneath there, and I'll show you some of those things in just a minute. And then quilt squares in the hoop, we have some really fun, perfectly pieced items to show as some examples of that. And again, a lot of times a no-show mesh and then tearaway. And
just
batting.
depends on how many stitches, how much you're going to put in there.
Exactly. You can probably see that
you'll see the idea as we move on.
Yep.
So patches. You know, you're not going to want an edge to that, of course. So a tearaway, depending upon what the edge type is, or a water soluble Badge Master is a great option for this. A permanent fusible, again, depending upon where you're putting that on. The permanent fusibles being your fusion seals. Those are great. The new Hot Fix could be used for that.
Yep.
Any of those patch attach, those types of things. You'll want to match your bobbin on the outside edges of those.
Yep. Embroidering on cork. We didn't really talk about hoop burn.
We didn't, but you definitely want to watch it if you've got whatever materials, whether it's a velveteen, you know, vinyls, things like that aren't going to be able to be hooped.
No.
So those are the types of things that you're going to use those stickies. If you
Or a
don't
hoop.
want to use a sticky, that's going to be a perfect time for a magnetic hoop. And then you can use that heavy tearaway that's also super hard to hoop.
Yep,
And
love it.
It will be a really great combination with those things. So a lot of those you're not going to want to get wet, so that's where that tearaway is better than the wash away, whether, you know, with the stickies, if that's what you're doing there.
Yes.
But the hoop burn, what that actually is where you can see where the hoop sits. So I mean, even on, you know, this fabric here, you could see this had been sitting in the hoop for a couple of days. You could see exactly where the hoop was at on that fabric. So that's what we're talking about by hoop burn, is being able to see where that's at. And when you have a velveteen or a specialty type fabric, you get that, but it doesn't ever come out. Where it would come out of this cotton, it doesn't come out of those specialty fabrics. That's what that hoop burn is that we're avoiding.
Yep, absolutely. So it's a lot of fun, and but
we've got a couple samples.
Yeah,
of those
you got to
too.
make sure that you don't.
You're not putting it somewhere that's going to damage that.
Yeah, we hoop when all possible. So if you can get it in the hoop, you want to get it in the hoop.
Absolutely.
But you can't hoop those
you're
things.
always going to have the best results if it's stabilized in the hoop.
Yep.
Most definitely.
And freestanding hoop in the project.
Do you want to say that again?
Freestanding in the hoop projects. I don't know what I was saying.
I'm not sure either.
It wasn't making any sense when it was coming out of my mouth.
Things that you're building in the hoop. So those
Yeah.
are generally going to be on a tearaway or water soluble. Sometimes they're going to have batting in there. Sometimes they won't. It just depends on the pattern. But those bookmarks, sometimes those have fabric. Sometimes they are just
Buildings,
thread.
yeah.
But stuff that you're going to build up from the stabilizer up.
Yeah,
in general.
that OESD, they have like a 3-story haunted
Some
house.
really cool
Yeah,
stuff there.
So
yeah,
something
absolutely.
like that.
It's on my list. My list is so long.
Fun with fonts and bags. I love to do fonts with some sort of batting inside.
Yep.
It gives the design a softness to it, so it's not so harsh, and it helps so that you don't get, like, no matter how much stabilizer you put on a font, sometimes you get little ripples around the outside edge. And if you have a little bit of OCD about how things look, that might really make you absolutely crazy. And so I really love to add some type of batting. Ultra Soft is
a really
baby
nice
lock
option.
product that is very, very thin and fusible, and really does.
It does a nice job.
Yeah, it's really
and
we
being
have
fusible,
that.
of course, it helps with the bond there helps with that because it gives you that really stable surface.
It does, yeah. It really fuses very, very nice.
Yep.
So
the fonts, you have to really watch the tunneling, which we've got on there, especially when you have a satin stitch. So when your stitch is doing one of these things instead of a fill, you're going to get tunneling.
And then you get
so
that little.
You don't want that
Ripple.
tunnel and that ripple that comes out the end of your
Yeah.
T or your whatever. You want to make sure that you have nice, beautiful, flat letters. So.
And
O to be flat.
we forgot the Y. It says terroir.
I didn't read. I didn't
see that either.
I didn't actually change any of these.
That's probably like that for a while.
Yeah.
Tearaway.
I'll fix that before we send that
I bet
back
you
up.
the box is probably too short.
Maybe. Yeah, that's probably it. So when you are making bags, prepping your fabric with best press, using a fusible batting of some sort is great. If it's not fusible, it's not the end of the world, but that is super helpful because then it doesn't shift in your seams and you don't get that weird pucker thing that happens right at the seams. So that's really great. And using a heavyweight tearaway to be, so you don't have an additional whole layer of stabilizer in a seam.
Exactly.
So it's really great to have that option. You make a lot more bags than I do. So most of mine are zippered stuff in the, not all of them, but lots of them. So I like the, again, Ultra Soft because it's so thin. It gives you that batting feel without being so bulky.
Yeah.
And you can actually have that in your seam and not want to pull your hair out.
Yeah, I like Ultra Soft, and then if you want something that stands up, I like to use the Annie's, the Soft and Stable.
Soft and Stable's great.
Because it works really well, and of course my little trick is always use the black colored version because it's just a tad bit skinnier.
4 left.
Okay.
How many?
4 left.
Okay. So everything else we already covered. There's a couple on here that are, is it better to stitch a design in a smaller hoop, or if you need multiple designs, can you use a larger hoop and add additional designs? Pros and cons. So there's 2 ways to look at that. The quality of the stitch out is always going to be best the tighter the hoop is to the edge of the design.
Right.
But, we also only have so much time in our life. And there is, as long as you're stabilizing properly, you can have bulk designs in a hoop and still get a very quality stitch out. So as long as you're stabilizing it properly, you can put multiple designs in a hoop and get a quality stitch out and definitely save time and stabilizer because one 10 by 16 is going to be less than, 12 or 8 or whatever 4x4.
Yeah.
So you're definitely going to be saving money in stabilizer if you can put everything in one bigger hoop.
Yeah.
Stabilizers for weirdo things: balsa wood, screen, velvet, wide corduroy, cork, flannel, rope, straw, silk, or
organza.
So weird stuff. So again, those are going to be the things like we talked about with the hoop burn are going to be mostly those kinds of things. So they're going to be mostly sticky or that type of thing, washaways that aren't going to show because there's a lot of things that aren't going to be able to be remaining. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, you are, like you said, a lot of times you have to use some sort of a sticky version or a magnetic hoop.
Or a magnetic hoop.
I don't...
Not sure how magnetic would go through balsa.
It probably wouldn't work.
I don't think it would work with that.
But I would definitely put a magnetic, I'd put like a sticky stabilizer in my magnetic hoop and then slap it down.
Yeah.
And partially because...
there's no edge to that.
Right, and you would get a nice, and it's pretty flat.
Yep.
So...
How thick or thin can an item be to be embroidered on to get a great stitch out? You can get things actually fairly thick. You just would want to adjust your foot height.
Yes.
So you always want your foot to basically be hovering right above. You don't want there to be a large gap or a push in. So you don't want the foot going into the item and you don't want there to be a large gap above it. Right. You want it just hovering right above your item. So just adjust your foot height.
Yes.
If you have a hopping foot, then of course it adjusts itself.
It kind of does adjust itself. And and every machine has little nuances for how it starts and stops. So it's not a be all end all, but it definitely is a good general rule.
Yep. We already talked toppers. We talked about Easy T. We talked about that. Overstabilize, we talked about that. Fusible tearaway, we did that.
So how to correct stabilizers when you cut through it or it tears when the project is in the hoop?
So one of the things, we actually talked about this the other day when we were doing cut work. You know, when you're cutting and, you know, if you have an oops and you've cut through or the project cut through, how do you fix that? Because we already said you can't stitch on air. Your stitches will not look good even if, you know, you think they're going to. It's not going to come out right. You always want to. So you can patch by either taping stabilizer underneath if you have an area that you can actually put tape on. If you're using a sticky, I love to just take the stabilizer from like the side and slice it and just literally
stick it. Just stick it right there.
Just stick it right in there. That was fun.
Don't let your stuff pop out.
Don't let your stuff pop out like that. But yeah, if you just cut off the corner and stick a sticky, whether it's tear away, wash away, whatever it is that you're using, into that area and just fill the hole because you need to have that there.
And there's a difference between you actually cutting through your stabilizer versus your stabilizer pulling away.
Absolutely.
If your stabilizer has pulled away, there really is no fixing that. You can try to put another piece, but the damage has already been done.
But the damage is done because your design has shifted.
Exactly. So you will never get anything
it's not going to line back up, unfortunately, because everything has stretched and nothing is in position. So turning your machine off and back on, and none of that is going to, unfortunately, magically fix it. So you can attempt to put some stabilizer to support it from there forward.
If you can catch it before it
gets bad,
completely comes apart.
You know, there's still a really good chance that it's not going to all line up at the finish of that design because, unfortunately, the damage might have already been done.
Yep.
So the last question on here is, how does one best use leftover pieces of stabilizer like no-show mesh, tear, or is that not worth being thrifty? Unfortunately, unless you are talking about like a piece that came out of a huge hoop that could fit into a 4x4 hoop, just throw it away. There is no sewing them together to fit in a hoop. That's not stabilizing anything. You've got to have a solid piece. If it is sticky and it's a decent enough size, you could maybe use it to patch. But like I said, usually the piece that you need is on the edge of your hoop. You don't really need that, unfortunately. It's pretty much waste.
Large chunks of like tearaway stabilizer, you could save those pieces. You know,
float.
like you could save for a float underneath something else. But there really isn't a lot of. It's kind of just the price of doing your project.
It's part of embroidery is there's going to be waste. And,
a lot.
And, you know, I used to try to save like everything because I was like, oh, I'm going to use this someday, and here I am years later throwing it away.
Yeah.
You know, there's a point where it's just like, okay, I can't keep all of this. And so at this point, I now, you know, okay, pieces of fabric have to be at least yay big before I'm going to keep it. I used to try to save everything. I'm going to sew them all together. I'm going to have this really scrappy quilt. Yeah, no, I'm not. So, you know, you've got to be realistic in what you are going to be able to manage to keep and all of that. So, all right, I think that's everything. Let's throw some samples up here and then let everybody go on their merry day because we're working on.
This is a great sample.
It is really a great sample.
Show you this one.
So you do that.
Okay. So we have a product called Cover Up, or embroidery topping. Yeah, it's not a topper. So this was a towel that I did a couple years ago, and
there's other brands too.
There are lots of brands, yes, but lots of people they wonder what on earth would you use it for? So this design is a great design. This was a very bad choice of color, and it was a very bad choice of design to put on this dark, and it's a waffle weave type towel. So you can't even read. I mean, I can read the words, okay, but you can't even read what is at the top because there's so much towel showing through. So I just embroidered the top part of this so that you could see, but I used the cover the top cover.
The top cover.
So there's white top cover in here, and then this has been washed, so you can't see the wash away stuff, but you can see that here. So I used a regular topper, and I also used the cover up part in this design. I think I saved the cover up part.
So that is the difference.
I mean, it's just night and day.
It blocks whatever your backing is so that you can see what you're stitching on top of.
And it stays permanently with it, but it peels right off.
So it's kind of like, you know, what we talked about lifting. It does that for you, but it stays there.
And it blocks.
And it blocks whatever that color is behind. So the idea is not interchangeable colors. You do want to match the top cover or your embroidery topping to your thread color.
If you can.
With whatever you possibly can. So, you know, red, black, you know, there's not in every color, obviously, but there's, you know, basic generic colors. But the difference between seeing the towel coming through here, this is the same stitch. This looks like it's got like a million more stitches, but it doesn't. It's the exact same design. Just with a cover underneath there.
Right.
And it just tears away. That's all it does. There's no cutting. You tear it out. So easy to use, but wow, what a difference that makes in the presentation of the design.
Okay. We have 3 bundles left.
Wow.
All right.
Okay.
And we added 10 more.
We added more.
All right. All right, so now let's just start showing some different types of samples.
All right, so what do we got back behind us? We've got some leather. We've got mylar.
Yeah,
we've
some
got
of the
cork.
fun stuff. Oh, here's our example of this
How to do that right.
Yeah. Done correctly. It's got the everything right on it, and it lays nice and flat.
So we've got mylar, which again is going to be torn out. So when you're using mylar, you're going to have a stitch that holds it in place because it does tear. So you'll always have stitching on top of that. So here's actually mylar on leather, which is a lot of fun. And again, there's a fill stitch holding that in place.
And so we used a sticky when we did this.
That was so long ago.
Yeah, we did. We used a sticky in this because you couldn't really hoop that any other way.
Yeah, that was
a while ago.
A long time ago.
Yeah.
Yep. But super cute. That was a Kimberbell little guy. And then this is super simple.
Yeah, webbing.
Webbing.
We didn't use anything on the top.
I don't think we did, but probably should have or could have, but
yes.
It did end up coming out okay. Very, very easy to make keychains. Just adding that on to that. So here's some cork. We've got a couple different velveteen options here. Velveteen with, this one was a lot of fun. We've got sparkle inside. So those were actually open, which we dropped confetti in there and then it sealed it closed. We've got vinyl on velveteen. We've got lots of velveteen. This is on water soluble. Lots and lots. More leather. This is not a Kimberbell leather. So this is a little portable tissue holder.
That's an Eversewn leather, I think.
This is an Eversewn leather. So, Miss Marilyn, we have 3 left, is what they're telling us. So, and we've already added to the original number that we had planned on having. So, did you show that one?
I did not. This was a Kimberbell digital dealer, and there is felt. So we did the cute little bunny butt on there, and then some different fabric pieces. So here we did leather. This is one of those times where when we actually did the leather, we had a topper underneath between our lace and our leather to make sure that everything stitched out okay. We had all kinds of different techniques in this. This one used just a sticky wash away, and
that was hard.
It really, we probably should have used something else. There was a lot of stitches there. And I definitely think we should have added
I think
some
it
more
needed
stabilizer.
something else in there too.
It's a drawstring bag, so it doesn't show this as much, but there's definitely a little
bit of pull in there.
Wrinkle behind
by the
there.
time it did all of these. That one was a hard one. This is just a little in the hoop projects. Lots of stitches there.
Yes, lots and lots and lots of stitches.
Those were both like a medium cutaway type. This is actually on a towel, and it was turned into a tote bag. So another Kimberbell design. It's got applique. We did this on probably sticky, and whole bunch of stitches on those. Those are, you could either do this one on a no-show mesh or a medium cutaway. It's a wall hanging kind of piece. Came out of my kitchen. My mommy made me those. This is a wall piece that I did. This is an Anita Good design. I've had that a long time. It's their Mariner's Compass. That just has no-show mesh and batting in there, so it's basically like quilting in the hoop. All of their different type pieces. Look at that.
Yeah.
Are you impressed?
I'm super impressed with your piping. I bet you didn't do that on your serger.
I did not do that on my serger. No, that was a flange binding. Another mug rug, another Kimberbell zipper. Lots of things. That was a different.
This is a good thing to point out.
Yes.
When you're doing different types of materials. So this was a design that was originally this size.
Yes. So I resized this, and I was like, oh, velveteen would be fun. And then when I turned it, it did not handle the turn very well. You can see that it split at the stitching there quite a bit. So this would have been very smart to, I didn't realize what it would do on the turn, obviously, to have put an easy tee on the back. That would have prevented that.
Yep.
So that's all that would have needed, and it would have been fine. So had I done that in there, but how cute. Those are the stuffies that that they have put out.
Yeah, then they made them bigger.
And then they made them bigger. Yeah, I
did
this. I did this before they did it, just so that you guys know I'm the trendsetter here. No, I'm just kidding, but I did do it first. So.
And here we did some cork with cards. So this is on paper. This is a sticky tearaway. I love using sticky tearaway.
Yes, very much so.
When I do cards, but we added a cork embellishment on there, used some metallic threads. These are a bunch of cards. Again, I like to use the sticky tearaway, and then I just cut around the outside of it so it kind of stays on the back. There's just a ton of these. Cards are so much fun. This is a cute one. It says, thanks buttload. Hayden asked me to change this for him, so it said, thanks butthead. So, I love this one. I would climb a smallish mountain for you. I would climb a smallish mountain for you, Lisa.
That's so nice of you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But yeah, just tons and tons and tons of cards. This was a Kimberbell card that
with the watercolor.
They used to have watercolor, so you drew around the outside edge and then sort of blended it in. That was a lot of fun. So we have our little man bag felt.
And leather.
So lots and lots of things. Again, the majority of these specialty type things are going to be done probably on some sort of a sticky, and most of them are going to have a little bit of wash away on top of them to keep the stitches up.
Yup.
Velda, it says how to, but we didn't get the rest of your question.
So this is, we briefly talked about this earlier. This is lace that I designed to fit in this jacket. And I've got it on the front parts too. And I stitched this on many, many layers of, I think I used 3 layers. So I used 2 mesh and a badge master because of the number of stitches that were in there. And somebody asked me, well, why didn't I stitch it right on the jacket? It would have just eaten this jacket alive.
It would have, yes.
So I stitched it, and then I just actually sewed and tacked it down, so I can actually, you know, there's spots where it's not attached. So it is free floating. It's just tacked down on the edges, and so that's how that was attached. That many stitches would have literally eaten this jacket alive, because it is one of those stretchy, crappy quality jean. It's not a heavy jean.
Yep.
But I had a ton of fun. I used my lace program to create that. So I made the background, and then I added all of the different pieces in there. So there's definitely, you have to think again, what's the end game there, and how are you going to make all of those things work? So that one of those corner pieces took 4 hours to stitch.
Yeah, they do take a ton of time.
So, we've got a ton more, but I mean, they're kind of repeating. We've got quilts and bags and things. Oh my!
Let's show just a little bit of fonts. I think those are fun to see. Just
so you know, we talked about tunneling and things. So you know, that is when you have that wide satin stitch. That's what we were talking about. And if you don't have the correct amount of stabilizer, this would end up with a pucker at the top in the center of these long pieces. And so that's what you're trying to correct before it happens. So those kinds of things.
Yeah, just lots of fun with fonts. This one was the soft, what is the baby lot? Ultra soft.
Ultra soft.
And this is
this
fusible
is just
batting.
a fusible batting and a tearaway. You can see the tearaway that's there. So I would say that the ultra soft worked better than the fusible batting.
Yep. It's a little more denser. It's definitely small. It's definitely softer.
Yes.
Substantially.
But I mean, even just maybe it's the fonts that you used too, but you've got a few, just a couple little ones.
I made this bigger.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't just,
okay.
I also made it bigger than the original design.
Gotcha.
So Marilyn asked a really good question. Would you use fusible mesh underneath the letters? I wouldn't, because most of the time I like there to be some sort of batting underneath mine. And again, remember my rule of thumb is one fusible only.
Yep.
So I will typically... She's got a
fusible batting.
I have fusible batting, so the batting is fused to the fabrics, and so I wouldn't use fusible mesh. You could use a layer of fusible mesh underneath it, but you are still absolutely going to need tearaway. You're going to need something that is stiff. You don't need the tearaway to support your project later on, but you need the tearaway to help prevent the tunneling that happens, because satin stitches have such a pull in.
It's just going to do this if you don't have that, and you're going to get that offshoot of fabric that goes out the top or wherever, and that's what you're looking to prevent.
Yes, and then you can just tear that away, and the whole project remains very soft, because it's super easy. Is there any tearaway left in here? No, there is in this one.
No, there is on this one.
But you can see how easy it comes off. So,
this is fun.
Right.
I like
just
doing this.
Super, it just comes off really, really easy.
And it's cathartic.
Yes, it's very easy. So that is the reason why we really, really, really love using that particular product, because it gives us so much support, and it's so easy to get it.
And again,
away.
as a wall hanging or whatnot, it's not going to the hand of it isn't going to matter. So adding that heavy tearaway is just going to give you the support that you need, and it's not going to affect the finished product at all.
Yeah, there's always going to be another what if. So letters on a recipe tea towel. If the tea towel were flat, then I would, if it were mine personally and I were doing it at home, I would starch the tea towel, and I would probably hoop it with just the heavyweight tearaway and then baste around the outside. That's probably what I would do. I would hoop it in one of my magnetic hoops, and then I would just peel that away. If I couldn't get my towel in my hoop, I would probably use a sticky wash away, but I would probably still use, I would still float a layer of the heavyweight. Like I said, it's gonna come out, and it's gonna get super soft when you're rinsing the other stabilizer away if you're doing that. If the letters were tiny, These letters on this towel, they're not thick.
Right.
So there's no pulling that really happens. So this was just a sticky wash away, and it was perfectly fine because I didn't have these.
Didn't have the tunnel
That's
worry.
right.
Didn't have to worry about that.
You know, if your letters are super small or thin, you don't have to worry about that.
You're looking at a different problem, quote unquote, to solve.
Right, right. So you have to take into consideration the type of stitches that they are, and that would play a part in what I choose to change them around with.
There you go.
I think that covers everything.
I think I don't got anything else. I'm dry.
You guys have hung around with us for almost 4 hours.
So thank you so much, and
thank you for everybody who has purchased. It has been it's been great. Obviously, this was well received. I know Marilyn was concerned about people coming in tomorrow and not being able to get into it. We will try to work some magic and see if we can get some more bundles.
We'll look and see what
together.
we can find today and try to get some more stuff. But we'll have to see.
So if you're watching this later,
you can still buy even if you're coming tomorrow. You can buy today. So if you know what you want, I would go ahead and make your purchase.
Yes, absolutely.
To ensure that you get what you want.
All right.
So thank you so much. We really appreciate you spending your 4 hours with us.
Yeah.
We will see you soon, I'm sure.
Yep.
Thanks.
Bye.